Hey, how's it going? We're about to go live. We should be going live here. I'm going to give everyone a minute to get the stream up and started. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in with me today for this budget announcement that's going to be coming here rather soon from Chrystia Freeland and the Liberal government. You might have seen the video. There's been some leaks on what could be inside of this budget, but let me know. Let me know that the stream's going okay. You can hear me okay, and you're seeing me come through clearly here. Everyone who's in the chat, thanks for everyone who tuned in and was waiting for this to go live. We're going to get started here rather quickly. Give a couple more minutes for people to get in, and then we're going to be rolling. Yeah, hey everyone, I'm seeing some people in the chat. I see Sandra and Steve and Arlene. Amazing. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We've got Jim, Janice, Amanda. Awesome. So what I was thinking we'd do to start off the stream was, as you know, the budget is going to be released in about an hour, give or take. I'm going to actually turn my stream on of what's going on in the House of Commons right now, just to make sure we don't miss anything in case they start it early. Okay, I've got that on the background. Now what we're going to take a look at this morning, all of the other political leaders who are leading parties right now. We've got Jagmeet Singh of the NDP, Erin O'Toole for the Conservatives, Annamie Paul for the Green Party. I don't know if the Bloc Québécois have said anything yet, but what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at, they actually spoke to reporters this morning about their views, and the fact that they also had pre-budget meetings with the Prime Minister might lead us to believe that, hey, they might have some more information that we don't yet. And we're also going to get an idea of what their views are. Awesome. All right, so let's dive in here. Oh, and also, if you're someone who's here in the stream early, one of the first viewers before this budget gets started here, make sure to like the stream. It helps get this video and this stream out to more people who could be interested in it. It helps out the channel, so thanks for doing that. And let me know how it's going, what you guys have been up to, and where you're tuning in from. We try to get representation from the entire country, and sometimes we can do it on the stream. So always interested to hear where you guys are from and how your days are going. All right, I've got my trusty mug here, my Pokemon mug. Full cup of coffee here, but also another full pot in the other room. So I may be refilling this depending on how long this budget presentation goes. Okay, so as I said, we're gonna hop in right away here and get an idea. Oh, awesome. Seeing so many people here from different places, from Ontario, Hamilton, Edmonton, Montreal, Winnipeg. Amazing. El Paso, Texas. Okay, Paulo. Okay. Malco says, do I think Binance is good? In some ways, it's very user-friendly. That's for cryptocurrency. Checking in from Ottawa on housing affordability. Yeah, so much to think about here. Oh, I love seeing all you guys in here. I love making the videos, but I have the most fun on these live streams because I get to chat with you directly and I get to hang out, and there's so many people here who want to build a Canadian community. And also, speaking of that, in the description, there's a link to our Discord server. So that's like a side app where we can also discuss, but it also has the benefit you can send me links, you can send me photos and things like that I may want to cover here on the stream. So in case I am having trouble finding a link to something that has come out in the news, people will help me inside of the live stream server. So check out the Discord link there, and you can help me out as I try to get some sources and information as we get into this today. All right, cool. Thanks so much for tuning in. Okay, so we're going to get right into it here. Let's switch over, and first we're going to look at the response from Erin O'Toole, the leader of the Conservatives, on what he expects to be in the budget today. And let me flip over to this. All right, and let's see what he has to say. I haven't watched this yet. Usually I'll watch these ahead of time before a stream, just so I know what's going to be said, but I have no idea what he's going to say here. So we can sort of see this as like a little bit of a pre-budget show, so we can get an idea of what all the different parties have to say right now. Let's hop right in.
Good morning. Across the country, Canadians were looking forward to beginning to reopen and round the corner on COVID-19. But now we find ourselves in Justin Trudeau's third wave. Des parties du pays sont fermées à nouveau. Les entreprises ferment leurs portes. Les enfants retournent à l'école à domicile. Hospitals are overwhelmed, and modeling suggests things will only get worse without the needed vaccine supply.
For a government video.
Last week, the Ontario Science Table released modeling that showed we need to be vaccinating 300,000 people per day just to keep pace with the spread of the virus. The province says they have the capacity to get needles and arms, but they don't have the vaccines. Ontario alone now needs over
right
2.1 million doses of vaccines every week. But Justin Trudeau hasn't even secured that amount for the entire country. British Columbia is also in need of more vaccines, and they've been raising the alarm about the major issues caused by the lack of predictable supply from the federal government. Modeling in BC indicates that hospitals could soon be overwhelmed there as well. Au Québec, les pénuries ont obligé la redistribution des vaccins à venir. Le Canada don't have adequate vaccine supply. Canada needs more vaccines, and we need them now.
This is labeled,
but the Liberals have been distracted. They've been planning an election instead of staying focused on getting Canadians through this crisis. For months, as provinces pleaded for more vaccines, all they heard from Ottawa
so we know there's a vaccine shortage,
vaccine
the
supply as an opportunity, frightening level of future debt.
Future debt, that means they're talking about
c'est la santé des Canadiens. The Liberal government's first instinct at the start of this pandemic was to use the crisis as an opportunity to give themselves unchecked taxing and spending power.
This is a big point that he's bringing up here. This is one of the things that I think people are going to call the Liberal government out on a lot, especially because of what Chrystia Freeland said in her talk about the childcare plan that's likely going to be inside of this budget. It was interesting because I think I understand where she's coming from here, but the fact that she said it is a little bit frustrating for a lot of people. She really was talking about how the pandemic is like an awful thing, yes, but also an opportunity. That's the language that she used, saying it's an opportunity for us to make changes in the country. Now, a lot of people say, hey, like, how are you saying this thing that's been making everyone's lives pretty rough for the past while as an opportunity? People don't like the language that was used there. I'm surprised she didn't like hold back those words just because it's a pretty bad look to the public. But I think that the Conservatives leading into the next election, which seems like it could be soon, depending on how this budget goes, it seems like they're really going to press on that sort of language. Like people are taking opportunity of this unprecedented event to push their own agendas forward.
For almost 2 years, Conservatives stopped this power grab. Now Mr. Trudeau wants to use this health and economic crisis as an opportunity to reimagine Canada's economy with risky schemes and a frightening level.
Hey, thanks, Herb, for the super chat. I like the
in today's budget,
the sticker there.
We will see exactly what that reimagining exercise really means. Will we see an Ottawa knows best approach that picks winners and losers by deciding which jobs, which sectors, and which regions of the country will prosper after COVID-19?
This is the push against like the
this
green jobs,
unproven
green
and often
deal the Liberals
incompetent economic approach threatens the
trying to
personal
retrain people for the new economy, but
of Canadians.
Conservatives are saying, hey,
when
that's
the Liberals
not really
table
fair
their
to pick and
budget
choose
this
which
afternoon,
jobs get to
Canadians
survive
can
in this
expect
economy.
the Trudeau government to incur massive new financial commitments that he expects future generations to pay for. Dans ce budget, nous allons voir une approche Ottawa c'est tout. Cette approche choisit les gagnants et les perdants. En plus de menacer la sécurité générale, engagements vont laisser le temps. Nous l'avons overpromise, underdeliver, and then they try to convince Canadians that they're wrong to feel let down. They won't be honest with the country.
Thanks,
which is dangerous in these
sticker.
times.
Thank you so much for that.
In
you guys
contrast,
don't need to do that.
Canada's Conservatives have tabled a plan to recover the 1
it,
million
you,
jobs lost during this
Hayden
pandemic by taking immediate action on the hardest hit sectors, helping those who've suffered the most through COVID-19, including women and young people. And we will protect Canadians from future
try to turn
crises.
myself up a little bit here.
Nous allons protéger l'avenir économique
This
du
should
Canada.
be a little bit better.
Pour ce faire, nous allons offrir des incitatifs. Ces incitatifs vont
Thanks for the tip, Destiny. Going to try to get these levels right before the actual budget comes.
Les Canadiens out of the last crisis. I know we can get us out of this one too. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, so essentially he's saying, hey, Liberals are going to come out with this budget. They're going to overpromise, underdeliver. They're going to be the ones who are selecting which jobs get to survive in the new economy for Canada, which ones die. Largely a hit at the way that the Liberals have said they want to move away from some of the energy resource sectors in Western Canada and sort of retrain people to get into better, like more newer green jobs that are more sustainable and more in line with what the Liberals want Canada to look like going forward. He usually gets asked a couple questions here by reporters, so let's see what they talk about.
commençant par les questions au téléphone. Un petit rappel, une question suivie par journaliste. Monsieur O'Toole prendra 6 questions aujourd'hui. We'll now take questions, starting with questions on the phone. Quick reminder, 1 question, 1 follow-up per reporter. Mr. O'Toole will be taking 6 questions, and we'll start with the phone. Operator, do we have a first question?
Thank you. Merci. Please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. There will be a brief pause while the participant register for questions. Il y aura un court délai vous permettant de vous enregistrer dans la file d'attente pour la période de questions. Thank you for your patience. Merci de patienter.
Okay, let's...
There are no questions registered on the phone right now.
No question.
CBC News.
So they're going in the room. Okay.
So good morning. David Thornton, CBC News. Very good to see you.
Morning, David.
The first question I just want to ask you is that oftentimes when you talk about the budget and what you expect the Liberals to bring in it, you've expressed concerns that they're going to use this as an opportunity to do a reimagining exercise. Can you tell us what you mean by that term? What are some of your fears of the things that they might try to reimagine?
Well, great question. I use that term, David, because it's what the Prime Minister has said several times. Reimagine, build back better. That should scare a lot of small business owners and families, because what does Mr. Trudeau and his small group of advisors feel is better? I think mom or dad want a job. That's good for them. We need jobs in all parts of the country, in all sectors. If you look at the Liberals' recent convention, they want to make the CERB permanent forever in Canada, universal basic income, which would actually be an incentive not to have a full return to an economic, strong Canada and growing economy. So we will see what they announce today.
Interesting.
But that reimagining huge debts and less opportunity for Canada should be disconcerting to Canadians.
Yeah, so lots of points brought up there. I just wanted to say, if you're tuning into the stream, yes, you're on the right stream. This is the budget live stream that we're going to be going over everything that's inside of the budget. That's set to release at 4 o'clock sharp. That should be when Chrystia Freeland in the House of Commons gets up and stands in the House of Commons and goes through the entirety of her budget. We're going to be live streaming that, going through every single point, and even when she's done presenting it, we're going to find the document online, go through it, get any details that we don't already have from her speech, so you can know exactly what's going on here. Until that announcement starts happening, we're going over all of the different leaders' responses to what's been going on and what they're expecting from the budget, any problems they're going to see with it, and likely they'll probably do statements after the budget as well, so that they can react to what's inside of it, maybe take shots against the government, saying, hey, this is not something that Canada should be doing. You already see that here with Erin O'Toole mentioning the vote that the Liberals had on UBI, where 77%, 88%, depending on the vote, voted in favor of implementing a UBI going forward as a part of the Liberal policy. So so he's really pushing against that, as many Canadians do. It's definitely a divided issue, right? Lots of people are in favor of it. Lots of people think it's the worst thing that could possibly happen. As I always say, everyone's welcome here. I'm just trying to bring you information so you can make your own mind up on it. Oh, thank you, Herb, for the super chat. It's so nice of you. And I'm seeing everyone in here. We've got Roadrunner, Johnny, Tom, Karen, It's Raw, Arbawi. Sorry, I butcher people's names sometimes. Cup of Coffee, showing you online. I love seeing all the comments. And again, if you haven't already done so, like this video, and it'll help this stream get out to more people. And stay tuned, because we're going to get to that budget as soon as it starts.
Succinctly, can you just maybe tell us 3 things that you need to see in this budget, that you want to see?
I want to see a plan for jobs in all sectors of the economy in all regions, not an ideological approach against resource jobs, for example, or jobs in steel, aluminum, traditional industries. Second, I would like to see us work on our competitiveness. Before COVID-19, we saw $160 billion leave Canada because of Mr. Trudeau's approach, because of illegal rail blockades and a number of things that made it seem that things can't get done in Canada. And third, we need a plan to get back to fiscal balance. The Conservatives have a plan to do that over the next decade, so that we don't burden our children and our grandchildren with out-of-control debts. That's what seems to be Mr. Trudeau's intention. We'll see if there's any sort of plan for balance today.
That's interesting that he brings that up. That's a big thing that people are going to be looking for in this budget is how are we going to pay for it? Is this just going to be on the backs of our children, our children's children, to pay down this debt? It's an interesting argument, and the argument always gets brought up about implementing different taxes, right, to pay for the programs, pay for the different things. And yeah, of course, you're going to have to make a little bit more revenue to implement these programs. But when you look at it a little more closely, you realize, hey, the government actually hasn't been able to finance the programs that it's running for a very long time based on tax revenue. For a long time, this is essentially how it works. I'll break it down a little bit. But essentially what happens, and this is sort of all on the spending issue, which they're probably going to cover inside of the budget. Right now, the Government of Canada raises money by issuing something called Government of Canada bonds, right? These bonds that investors or other large institutional buyers like big banks can buy, saying it's basically an IOU. The Canadian government saying, hey, if you give us all this money, we'll give you all the money back plus a little bit of interest down the road, right? As with any debt. So they issued these Government of Canada bonds, but since the beginning of the pandemic, the Bank of Canada has been implementing a bond buying program. So they've incentivized the big banks to buy up the Government of Canada bonds as quickly as possible, essentially subsidizing the Government of Canada's debt. So the Bank of Canada is lowering interest rates, making it cheaper for the Liberal government to borrow, and all at the same time adding money to the system. So we can get into a lot more detail on that later, because I find that portion of it really interesting, thinking about like where are we going in terms of our monetary policy going forward. I didn't realize that macroeconomics is actually interesting, but when you put it in the context of what's happening in the wealth gap, the real estate market, and how this all has effects for that, you realize, hey, this is actually affects everybody. And if you put it in the right mindset and the right frame, it's actually really interesting. At least I think so. So we've heard from Erin O'Toole. Let's hear what Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the NDP, has to say about this budget that's coming up. If he foresees anything that his government is going to be super against. We know that they along with the Bloc, were pushing for more support for seniors, an increase in OAS, GIS, CPP. The Liberals have committed to increasing some of these supports for seniors over age 75, but everyone else is saying, well, NDP and the Bloc are saying, hey, why are we making it 75? We should lower that down a little bit. Let's hear what he has to say here, though. Actually, as we do that, I'm just going to put this over here so I can monitor when the actual one comes up. All right, let's listen in. Okay.
The budget.
Okay.
Given how serious things are, two things are top of mind for us. We want to see in this budget. One is we want to see an improvement of paid sick leave. We know that people are getting sick at work, and we know that workplaces are the highest risks of transmission. Workers are getting sick and bringing that back to their families. We need to improve access to paid sick leave. We need to see it improved. That's something that we want to see. And so far, we've not heard anything from the releases or the information coming out about the budget that this budget will improve paid sick leave, and that's a big concern. Second,
okay, so that's what they're looking for. They took credit for having the CRSB being included in the CRB's bill when that initially got put in, but the program's been a little bit problematic because people can't access it. You need a certain amount of time off from your week to be able to access it. People haven't been able to access it when they want to take only a couple days off because they're worried they could be sick. So a little bit of concern with the program that was already made. And of course, that's made matters worse even on Ontario, where Ontario, the government is saying, hey, we don't want to be the ones to implement the sick leave when there's already a federal one, but the federal one doesn't really work for most people. So the NDP, at least in Ontario, this is on a provincial level now, have been really pushing against the Conservative government in Ontario to implement paid sick leave. But Doug Ford's just saying, hey, it's the federal government's job. We're not going to duplicate a program that's already there.
Secondly, and fundamentally, the big question about who pays the price of this pandemic and who pays the price for the recovery. We want to see the ultra rich pay the price for this recovery, pay for the pandemic. And so far, we've not heard anything about that. Those are two things that are fundamental and vital. We also haven't heard anything about about universal pharmacare in this being in this budget. We'll wait to see the results of the budget, but that's something that's very troubling for us as well. We know that in this crisis, we need to immediately help people. And so we are calling folks that are hardest hit. These are the folks that are getting sick, and these are the folks that are not getting vaccinated. This is a problem.
On top of that, we know that workers aren't able to take time off to get vaccinated
Both
or
leaders
to
have really
stay
had a
home when
very
they're sick.
somber tone.
So
in their
we're
press
calling on the
conferences
government to
leading up
use
this
the
budget.
Emergencies Act,
I know it's pretty early in
specifically
the
a public
morning.
health emergency, and provide specific help to get to those communities that are hard hit to help workers stay safe. So far, we haven't seen any commitments from the budget that would do this. We'll wait and see the exact budget before we respond specifically on that. But these are some of the things that we want to see, and we need to see them urgently.
Interesting stuff. So what, like,
Haven't seen any commitments.
so he wants an Emergency Measures Act used? Is that did I hear that correctly?
Calling on the government to use the Emergencies Act,
Yeah.
specifically a public health emergency, and provide specific help to get to those communities that are hard hit to help.
Okay, so federal emergency and target those places that are really hard hit. And Katrina, thank you so much. Katrina says, thank you for all these Canadian updates on what's happening with the government. You make it all simpler and smaller English. Yeah, thank you, Katrina. I really enjoy making it, and I'm glad you're finding it helpful. Thank you so much for the super chat. That's so sweet of you. All right. Thank you again, Katrina. That's awesome. And thanks for everyone for tuning in. If you're just tuning in, someone who's just new to the stream, just clicking on right now, we are going to be covering the federal budget. It's going to be released right at 4. So right now we're getting an idea of what the other political parties have said this morning ahead of the budget, because they had pre-budget meetings with the Prime Minister, I believe, maybe with Chrystia Freeland as well. So they have an idea of what's going to be in it. So based on what they're saying, we can get a good idea of what could be inside of it. He said here that their big question, the NDP, is who's going to pay for all this pandemic spending. They think it should be the wealthiest Canadians, the big businesses that have made excess profits over the course of the pandemic. And they say there's not anything in the budget that's talking about that. If you saw my video that I posted a little bit earlier about some of the leaks that have come out, it seems that there could be like a luxury goods tax, like a toys for rich people tax on cars over $100,000, boats under $100,000, or $250,000, as well as like private jets. So like the most extreme wealthy may be taxed through that, as well as some like other taxes on some of the large online businesses that aren't adequately taxed here in Canada because their home base isn't here in Canada. You're talking like these e-commerce businesses, things like this. So interesting stuff from Jagmeet Singh. And thanks ZZZ7. Thank you so much for the super chat. That's so sweet of you. Thank you guys. Yeah, I should, Slick Pete. Yeah, I should just say like, hey, spoiler alert. I shouldn't mention any of this. This is like, this is serious stuff. It's the budget. It's Canada's future, but also, it can be a little bit entertaining. So I don't want to spoil everything for you. We're gonna hear from all of that when the budget comes out here, and we're gonna do a deeper dive analysis on it. But thank you again, ZZZ7, for the super chat. So nice of you. All right.
Help workers stay safe. So far, we haven't seen any commitments from the budget that would do this. We'll wait and see the exact budget before we respond specifically on that. But these are some of the things that we want to see, and we need to see them urgently. Donc, ce qu'on veut voir dans le budget, deux questions.
As you guys know, here my French is amazing. I can translate a little bit when they speak in French, but apart from that, I can't really. So we're gonna skip through there because we're an English-focused stream. Love goes out to the French speakers, though. I wish I could. Oh my goodness, Alex Stamatakos. Thank you so much, Alex. Thanks for all the amazing content. P.S. Love your mug. Yeah, thank you. I'm a Pokemon fan since I was a kid. Not playing as much these days, but Pokemon Go was cool when that came out, man.
Ça, c'est un grand problème. Et on a exigé le gouvernement libéral de utiliser les mesures d'urgence en Ontario spécifiquement pour immédiatement aider.
Reminder, one question, one follow-up.
Okay, here we go. This is where we get the dirt, right? Like the politicians always come out and they make their speech. They don't say anything groundbreaking per se, but what they do get is when the reporters get in there asking questions, sometimes they can let slip a little bit more information.
Commençons par les questions au téléphone. Un petit rappel, une question suivie par journaliste.
Yeah, as a reminder, Toronto Yeller, this isn't live right now. This is the responses from the other party leaders in the morning, who and what they think is going to be in the budget, what their response is to the budget. At 4 o'clock, we're going to switch over to the other actual live stream once they start talking about the budget in the House of Commons. Right now, they're still voting on some other bills that aren't really consequential to what's going on with the budget here. Good question.
Thank you. Merci. Please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. There will be a brief pause while the participants register for questions. Il y a un court délai vous permettant.
Okay.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm wondering, Mr. Singh, whether you had any consultations with Justin Trudeau before this budget was assembled? And if so, if you can tell us anything about that. Was there any dialogue, any effort to listen to
I
what?
know, man. I think people need to like this is such important stuff for the country. I don't understand why both the political leaders and some reporters who are asking questions just like aren't a little bit more engaging in the way they answer questions, right? Well, I guess this could just be someone who's going to transcribe it and make it into like a newspaper article. But man, they could at least use a little bit more tone in their voices when they're talking.
Had to say about what should be in the budget.
Certainly, we said, I said a couple of things that were important. We had an opportunity to dialogue. There's a conversation that I had with the Prime Minister, and I outlined a couple of things. First off, I said again that we need to see better paid sick leave. That is essential. That is so important. Workers are getting sick. We need to protect them. We fought hard for paid sick leave in the first place, but it is not good enough. We need to make it better. So that's one. Secondly, I said that we need to get the vaccine to the communities that are hardest hit. That some of the hardest hit communities, the most vulnerable workers, are the ones that have the lowest rate of vaccination. So we need to get better to get the vaccine to people who need it most. And that's what I raised. I also highlighted how this pandemic, as I've said before, is one that has disproportionately impacted women. And one of the most important tools to help women get back to work, to increase the job participation, is having a strong, universal, affordable childcare. And so I fought for that and continue to put pressure on that. And as I said before, we want to make sure that it's the ultra rich that pay the price of this pandemic. That's something really
interesting.
important.
That's kind of like something that's been going on. Like, so spoiler alert, Slick Pete said in the chat to tell you when I'm going to spoil something that may be in the budget based on what the leak was. It seems like there could be a very large national childcare program coming into place. And that's what Chrystia Freeland's been pushing for a little while. The Liberal government's been promising it for a while. Here, Jagmeet Singh is saying, I've been pushing hard. I've been pushing on the Liberal government hard on the issue of a national childcare. I don't know if he's trying to take more credit for what's going to come out of the Liberals here very soon. That's interesting though. That's definitely something that the NDP feel like right now. They feel like, hey, we've been the ones fighting and pushing the Liberals to make the CRB at the higher rate. I think it was originally only going to be at 1,800 or 1,600. They're saying that they fought to bring it up to 2,000. Of course, people get 1,800 right when they hold it back for tax and all that. But the NDP really feel like, hey, we've been doing a lot of the fighting on the ground, pushing back against the Liberals, but we're not getting the credit for it. So that's kind of what Jagmeet Singh is saying here is like, hey, they're about to tell you all about their childcare program, but we've been pushing for that. Whether or not they actually have been pushing for that, whether or not the talks that they've had with the NDP have contributed anything to this program, well, that remains to be seen. And also, it's interesting to note, like another interesting thing about the NDP right now is that Jagmeet Singh in the past has said, now is not the time for an election. We don't want an election. He's citing people's safety with the pandemic and all of this. But the interesting thing to note is he says, hey, we don't want an election. We will not trigger an election. Well, what that says to the Liberals is that, hey, the NDP are going to vote with us on our bills. They're going to vote with us about this budget when we try to start implementing the budget, the things that are inside the budget. So essentially, it tells the Liberals, hey, we don't have to have an election unless we want to, which could happen, right? The Liberals could trigger an election themselves if they want to try to go for a majority government instead of the minority that they currently have right now. But as of right now, it's not going to come down to a vote of no confidence, which is what would happen in the House of Commons if enough people voted against the Liberal Party's policies, the budget they bring forward, any other bills. It could trigger a vote of no confidence. And the House of Commons says, hey, we no longer have confidence in this government since we have a minority. That triggers an election. NDP Jagmeet Singh here is saying, hey, we're not going to do that. So Liberals, you can have an election if you want, but it'll be on you.
I asked for that. And in general, the things that the Liberals have promised for decades, we wanted to see not just childcare, which the Liberals have promised for over 2 decades, but also universal pharmacare. And I raised those concerns that these are things that people need and need to be in the budget.
Okay.
Follow you don't feel it's the time that you'd like to see efforts focused on dealing with the pandemic and getting Canadians back to work and all of that. Everyone is wondering, however, is there a chance that your party will vote against?
This is exactly what I was just talking about.
And you're walking out of a tightrope there, I suppose. So what is your latest thinking on support for this document? Is there
they've said they're just going to support it in the past
in order to provide your support?
Well, there are a lot of ways that we can continue to apply pressure and to fight for the things that Canadians need, and we're going to do that. We're going to continue to fight for better paid sick leave. We're going to continue to fight to make sure we are getting the vaccine to communities in need. We're going to continue to fight to make sure there is a real childcare program that is universal and accessible and affordable for Canadians. We're going to continue to fight for universal pharmacare. These are things we're going to continue to fight for, and we're going to continue to fight to make sure that the ultra-rich pay their fair share and that they're the ones that pay the price of this pandemic. These are things we're going to fight for. But I want to be very clear. We have said, as Canadians agree, it would be unsafe and it would be unfair to Canadians to have an election right now with the pandemic and the third wave where it is. This would be unsafe and unfair. We are worried about people. We are going to continue to fight for people. But I'm going to be responsible and make sure that I'm making a decision that does not in any way jeopardize the health of Canadians. So we are not interested in triggering an election. We are interested in fighting for the help that people need.
So there's your answer. Again, that's basically saying this budget's not going to trigger an election because the Conservatives alone and the Bloc Québécois, I believe, even if they vote against something, well, then they still won't have enough if the Liberals and the NDP are voting in favor of something. Interesting stuff.
Operator, next question.
Thank you. Merci. Once again, please press star 1 at this time if you have a question.
And again, I'll reiterate, if anyone's just clicking onto the stream right now, we're waiting for the federal budget to be announced. Right at 4 o'clock is when Christopher Freeland's going live. So we're getting an idea of what the other political parties said this morning in the press conferences that they held relating to what they think is going to be in the budget and what they think is not going to be in the budget and that they're upset isn't in the budget, right? We just heard from Erin O'Toole. He's largely saying we don't want a reimagining of our economy. We don't want a UBI. We want everyone to be supported through the pandemic, not just the jobs and the people that Ottawa wants to support. That's essentially what he's saying. Here, Jagmeet's saying, we're not going to vote against this budget, but we're going to keep on pushing for pharmacare. We're going to push for a national childcare plan, which we think is going to be inside the budget here. It could be as low as $10 a day per child for a national pharmacare. The Liberals have been really pushing for this in order to help help women get back into the workforce after the pandemic, because data shows that more women have been knocked out of the workforce due to the pandemic. Largely, many people believe due to the still trend that women are the ones that are more likely to stay home and take care of kids. And now when schools close, they're staying home, not going to work, right? This is what's been going on. So we're going to flip over to the budget reading as soon as that happens, but we're going to keep on hearing here from the other political party leaders.
There are no further questions registered at this time, Ms. People.
And we'll take a question from the room. David?
Hi, Mrs. Singh. Good to see you. David Thurton, CBC News.
Good to see you.
What you're calling for is a bit unprecedented. So how specifically would you like to see this broad-ranging act be used in this circumstance?
Talking about the Emergency Act.
I really appreciate the question. So what we've called for is the Emergencies Act to be used. Once it's declared, once a public health emergency is declared and the Emergency Act is used, we want it to be used specifically for two things. In Ontario right now, the situation is literally catastrophic. We've got healthcare workers that are at their end. They've been pushed to the limits for a year now, and things have gotten to the worst they've ever been right now. Healthcare workers are at the verge of breaking. They're so under so much pressure. It is so hard for them right now. So they need help. And the Prime Minister made an announcement of some help over the weekend, which is welcome. But we need to go beyond that. And the reason why we need the Emergencies Act, there's two specific things that we can do using the Emergencies Act. First off, we know that paid sick leave and giving workers the ability to take time off to get vaccinated, time to stay home when they're sick, these are things that the Emergency Act will allow us to have more tools to do. Secondly, we need to get the vaccines to the communities that are hardest hit. And that is something that has been a failure in Ontario. Doug Ford has failed, absolutely. The poorest communities, the communities hardest hit, the communities with the most racialized people, the communities with the most essential workers are the ones with the lowest vaccination rates. That is a problem that has to be fixed. And that's what I'm calling for, using the Emergencies Act to address these two specific things in Ontario
So I believe the Emergencies Act would allow them to provide support, spend money, do things without having to go through the legislative process or the official processes to make sure that everyone's voting in accordance that they will actually want this to be done. So he's saying, hey, bring in this Emergency Act. I believe maybe it's Emergency Measures Act. My vernacular when it comes to this stuff isn't always spot on, but that's what he's calling for here, is for them to bring in these emergency measures so we can send money, send extra support to these areas that are really hard hit right now, that are dealing with the pandemic right now. So that's his response here. I believe that might be the
police.
Okay, here's one more.
He's since changed his mind on that.
Talking
the
about
Emergencies Act would curb certain freedoms for Canadians. So I guess my question to you is, how is what you're calling different from what Doug Ford did, which was widely criticized? And how would you protect, the freedoms of Canadians who, many of whom don't feel comfortable with the police and don't feel comfortable with increasing policing in communities, which, invoking the Emergencies Act might bring about?
I really appreciate that question, because I want to clarify this. I've been very vocal over the weekend. I was very vocal that increasing police powers is not going to help. Increasing police powers will not make people safer, and I am against that. I'm firmly against that. With the new Emergencies Act, separate from the past legislation, this actually does not in any way impact police powers.
Well, I can't, to be honest with you, Chad, I can't be, I can't imagine the Emergency Measures Act, this being anything that's included in the budget today, given the fact that this budget has been drafted over the past couple of months. They started consultations a long time ago. The situation has really only gotten to the extreme severity that it has in Ontario over the past weeks, right? So I think he's calling for this, but it wouldn't be something that's related to the budget necessarily. Interesting stuff, though. We're going to switch over to Green Party leader Annamie Paul, and she also did a press conference here. And again, thank you guys for tuning in. I love seeing all of you in the chat. If you've seen any of my videos on YouTube, thanks so much for watching. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, feel free to subscribe. We're trying to make a Canadian sort of place for Canadians to go to get information. And we also talk about personal finance, investing, real estate, macroeconomics from time to time, just because I find that interesting as well. Cryptocurrency, anything about this. So anytime you have any questions about that in these live streams, I like to take questions as we go through it. But we're going to switch over now to Annamie Paul. Now, she is the leader of the Green Party. And she's been often talking about UBI, talking about green jobs, of course, as the Green Party. So we're going to see what she thinks is going to be in this budget, whether or not some of the things she's been calling for are going to be in it. And she was also very heavily in support of canceling all student debt and, over the long term, canceling the tuition for post-secondary schools. Now, that's a major drastic change, and the Green Party isn't likely to get into power very soon. But again, these side parties that are less prominent, the pressures that they can put on the government could direct them into different directions. But we might even see some support for students in this budget. So let's hear what they have to say about it. We're going to swap over here. All right. And let's listen in.
There's no question that the first thing I need to begin with today is our third wave and the devastating impact
Ninja's
that the
great.
third wave
Nobody's talking about housing
on many
affordability
parts of
right now.
the country. As someone who lives in Ontario, I have a firsthand view of this. It's the reason that I'm not in Ottawa today for the budget. There were unfortunately not any accommodations made to ensure that we could participate safely in a lockup. And so I am here doing what our public health officials have advised everyone to do, which is to stay home as much as possible unless absolutely
So she's kind of
necessary.
chirping the rest of the people who are going to be in the room today to listen to the budget.
The third wave
but they're not listening to Ontario's guidelines.
is continuing unabated. And we know that this is a time that we need to pull together nationally, that a national pandemic, a national crisis requires a national response and a national strategy. It is something that we have been calling for since November. It is something where the calls have increased during this third wave, most recently on Friday, when the Canadian Medical Association called for a nationally coordinated response. And so this is something that where we were encouraged to see some activity this weekend by the federal government and by the Prime Minister reaching out to provinces. I would say that it is quite clear at this point that our effectiveness in terms of our COVID response strategy is being impeded and compromised by political division. There is simply no good reason that at this late stage, and with the situation so grave in so many provinces, why we have not had a direct conversation between the premiers in the hardest hit provinces and our prime minister. And so I believe that we have to acknowledge that fact and say that if we are going to mobilize the health and human resources that are needed as quickly as possible, that the politicians need to step back, and the health officials and health experts need to take the lead. I don't believe that at this stage we are.
Let's skip through here. They're talking about the response of the situation in Ottawa right now, or in Ontario. I kind of want to hear what she has to say about the budget.
Urgent help that include a national moratorium on eviction.
Okay, she's calling on things.
In terms of today's budget, this is a budget that is include a national moratorium on evictions, a new national residential tenant support benefit, which would address the crisis of evictions, particularly of low-income people, many of them essential workers, due to income loss during the pandemic.
Like a rent subsidy on top of CRB?
We need to see a reinstatement of the Canada Emergency Student Benefit, topped up to $2,000 per month, in recognition that the summer has arrived for students. It arrives in May, and they face a dismal job market and unusually high unemployment. We also want to see...
That's interesting. This is the first leader that's actually coming out with a lot of different points about what she wants. She said a moratorium on evictions. I don't know if they can even do that nationwide, or if they have that kind of jurisdiction to be able to make those calls as a federal government. A total pause on evictions is what she's calling for here. She's also calling for a new benefit to be created for residential rent. Right now we have CERS, the Canada Emergency Rent Subsidy, but that's only for businesses and they're renting out of their commercial spaces. But what she's saying is hey, we want to give money to the average Canadian to pay rent, but that's kind of happening right now through CRB. So some politicians and some other critics of this may say, hey, you know what? It's already happening through the CRB. Why would we duplicate an extra benefit that's going to just pay for rent? And then who would be eligible for it? So it's one thing to say these things, but it'd be interesting to see what exactly the rollout would look like. How would they like these things to be implemented? Haven't heard anything like this from the Liberals, and I think it's not as likely to be inside of the budget, but let's keep on listening.
The extension of the COVID emergency benefits to the end of the year, the uncertainty of these very short extensions of the benefit make it very hard for people to plan, very hard for people to have the stress of not knowing where the supports are going to come from. It's very hard for that to be lifted. And so knowing that that benefit is in place until the end of the year would be important. And then finally, in terms of the urgent things that are needed right now, decriminalization and creating a safe supply is essential. We are in a record-breaking year for opioid-related deaths. Out in BC, it was reported last week that the numbers have increased to 5 per day. And we know that what we are doing now is not enough and that we are paying for the inaction in lives lost. Now, I want to be very frank and to say that the Green Party does not have a lot of confidence. I do not have a lot of confidence that this session of Parliament is going to last long enough for whatever the plans and items are in the budget beyond these most urgent, immediate needs.
Listen to this.
The signaling is very clear that a general election is imminent. There is a lot of pre-election posturing going on, which is discouraging, but which suggests that the time to actually implement any budget items may be very short. That being said, we will never abandon hope.
Let me tell you the significance of that. What she's saying right now is, hey, as a political party leader, what she's saying is, we don't think that there's going to be even enough time to implement this budget, right? Because remember everyone, when this budget comes out, it's not legally binding. Because they've released it doesn't mean that it's exactly going to happen exactly that way. This is their plan. This is what they're putting forward. Anything inside of this budget that is going to be released here in, what time is it now? In under 15 minutes is going to be announced what's exactly in it. Chrystia Freeland's going to do her speech. We're going to be tuning in on that very, very soon if you're just tuning into the stream. But what she's saying here is even if there's something that people want inside of the budget, even if there's not something people want inside of the budget, well, there's not a whole heck of a lot of time to actually implement it. Remember, for them to implement anything that's inside of the bill, well, they have to, or inside of the budget, they have to draft a bill, right? They have to legislate this all. They have to draft a bill, come up with all the wording on how the program would work, then bring it to the House of Commons, debate it for months, right? Like they did with Bill C-14, the expansion of the $600 billion extra credit limit for Canada, as well as the student loan interest pausing and the Canada Child Benefit. That was all just voted through last week, right? But they'd have to bring anything that's inside of the budget. They'd have to debate all of this through in the House of Commons and vote on it. Has to go to first reading through the committee phase into third reading, then to the Senate, and then if the Senate's okay with it, then it can receive royal assent and actually become a reality. What Annamie Paul here is saying from the Green Party is, hey, even if there's something in this bill, there's no telling how sure it is that this could actually happen, right? She's saying, hey, it's great what plans are going to be in here, but it doesn't really matter because it looks like there's going to be a federal election, at which point maybe somebody else is in power, maybe they have a different plan, and maybe we're looking at an entirely different budget 4 months from now, right? This is a good point, and it's interesting that she brings it up. Now, as of right now, like I said before, the NDP said they're not going to vote against the budget or any bills implementing the budget because they don't want to see an election right now. Now, they say it's because of the pandemic, they want it to be safe, but critics have said, hey, the NDP likely wouldn't do very well in an election right now, so that might be why they don't want an election as well. So things to consider here. Let's see what else she has to say here. I'll flip over to the screen.
Hope that all political parties can come together in the way that people in Canada expect them to achieve historic gains for Canadians, to work across party lines, to keep this session of Parliament going until we achieve and deliver the most important policies that we know we should have in place for people in Canada. I truly believe that there is common ground if we look for it, if we prioritize people, and that if we do commit ourselves to that in the 2+ years that are left in this session of Parliament, we really could do extraordinary things. And many extraordinary things have been accomplished by minority parliaments in the past. These things include a guaranteed livable income, long-term care reform,
UBI.
New universal programs, including childcare, pharmacare, and post-secondary education, a commitment to a 60% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from 2005 levels by 2030, enhanced investments related to a green recovery to accelerate our progress toward a net zero economy, major investments in the renewable electricity sector, a national mental health strategy, and of course, true reconciliation with Indigenous peoples.
Wow, they're really giving line item by line item of what they would do if they were in this position. We didn't really see that from Erin O'Toole. This is kind of more broad what he was saying. He did put out that plan at the Conservative Policy Convention on what he would do if he was in power right now, and likely leading up to an election. That's probably what he's going to campaign on. Now, Erin O'Toole has been having some problems rallying the Conservatives because he's come out saying, hey, I want to take these climate actions. He made his own kind of carbon tax. He's not calling it a carbon tax, but he says it's better than Trudeau's and it's less harmful to the energy sector. But he's had a lot of problems because he's pushing these sort of policies before all of Canada, and it's dividing the Conservative Party a little bit. So it'd be interesting to see an election, no doubt, right now with all this going on. And I want to take another second to say thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We're minutes away now from the budget. I've got it up on my other monitor, so we're not going to miss it. We're going over here what the other political party leaders have to say leading into this budget announcement, what they think is going to come, what they think is wrong with it. That's what we're covering right now. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel. And a huge thank you to everyone who has liked this stream. Click that thumbs up button. There are around 1,000 people watching right now and only around 200 likes, so I'd love to see that like number go up because it does help the stream get out to more people. I appreciate all of you. Thanks so much for being here. I imagine out of close to 1,000 people who are here, we've got to have representation from everywhere in Canada. Let me know where you're from in the chat. Most people from Ontario, BC? Do we have anyone from the territories up north? Any East Coasters out there? Let me know. But as we do that, let's keep on listening in here to Annamie Paul.
So this is ambitious, but it is possible. It is possible if we work together. These are things that I will work with any party to achieve, that our caucus will work with any party to achieve. And given the time that we have left, these things are achievable if we choose to seek the common ground. Alors, dans le budget d'aujourd'hui, il faut reconnaître que c'est un budget qui se passe dans le contexte du troisième vague de la pandémie. C'est un moment absolument pour le gouvernement du Canada, mais aussi tous les membres.
All right, she'll probably get to some questions here. See, this is the way I think that they should do it. Like, a lot of the speeches go back and forth between English and French, but it seems like she's like doing English then French. It makes more sense, right? Because everyone who wants to watch each part can just watch that, as opposed to going back and forth every sentence.
I believe that, and again, just, David, did you hear what I said before about the oppositional talk? We're really not seeking to put ourselves in opposition to anything. What we're trying to do is to propose something that we think is a more workable, useful, productive solution. And so in our case, what we have called for since November is a rapid response task force to coordinate every single aspect of the pandemic that would have and still would benefit from that coordinated response. And we heard that last week from the Canadian Medical Association. We've heard that from many health associations, many health experts for quite some time now, particularly in this third wave, that there are some things that just need to be coordinated at the national level that require the deployment to some of his political divisions that unfortunately we see in our country.
Saying that the problems that are going on in Canada right now are because people are being very partisan.
That presume that that the response between provinces and between steps.
Okay. I kind of joined the Zoom call late. Just succinctly, just tell us maybe what are the three top things the Greens want to see, need to see in today's budget?
Well, I don't know when you joined, but one of the things that I said, that I observed, is that given the current trajectory of this parliament, given the escalating rhetoric and the loss of the early pandemic solidarity, it doesn't seem like any of the long-term promises contained in this budget are going to be fulfilled, because we're going to be in an election before those have a chance.
Doesn't matter what's in the budget. Who cares, guys?
Given that, and given
there's going to be an election, is what she's saying.
Very immediate needs that people in Canada have, that some people in Canada have, that still haven't been met. We're focused very much on the urgent needs, the things that we want to see in the budget and we want to see implemented as soon as possible. That includes a national moratorium on evictions. We know that some
moratorium. Let me go over this so we don't have to elaborate on it. She wants a moratorium on evictions. She wants a new rent subsidy put out for residential rent, not just commercial rent. Residential, like people who are renting apartments, renting homes. In this, she wants to support. She wants the CESB, the Canada Emergency Student Benefit, put back in for the summer. Jobs numbers are down for that type of job. Students just entering the workforce. People who are just working summer jobs. A lot of these restaurant jobs, service industry. A lot of what young people work in the summers to pay for their education. She wants that to be covered by this Canada Emergency Student Benefit. And also on top of that, she's calling for more supports for students. Going forward, she wants to eliminate student debt for some people, also eliminate tuition for post-secondary education, like universities, colleges, apprenticeships, things like that. I guess apprenticeships, you get paid anyways, but that sort of level of schooling, that's what the Green Party is pushing for. And I made a video on that a little little while ago about the plan for students. Both Jagmeet Singh, also the NDP, wants to eliminate around $20,000 of student debt. That was something he put forward in his plan. But again, these parties don't have as much sway in the House of Commons right now because they're the smaller ones, right? The big dogs, at least right now, because of the results of the last election, are the Liberals and the Conservatives. So we look at all of the policies from everybody because of the pressures they can put on those more top dog political parties, right? As these other political parties pressure, then you can see policy, it starts to move the thread or move the needle one way or the other. But we got to really listen to what the Liberal government says and the Conservative government says, because again, those ones are, as of right now, the most likely to have a bigger impact on what policy happens going forward. Let's see if we get into any other questions that reveals anything new.
And
if not, we're going to flip off
we will continue to talk about the need for decriminalization and a safe supply. It was touched.
Okay, decriminalization of illicit substances.
I'll go to Travis from Global News. Travis, go ahead, please. One question, one follow-up.
Ms. Paul, thank you for taking my questions today. I kind of want to shift gears to focus on Ontario and the situation here. Obviously, it's not that good. There are growing calls for the Premier of Ontario to step aside and resign because of the crisis that we are facing in this province right now. The Ontario Liberal leader has called for it. The NDP leader has called for it. I'm just wondering what your take is as to whether or not the Premier should step aside.
Thanks for the question, Travis. I would say that certainly after this pandemic is done, there will be time to consider. There will be a reckoning about what was done and what wasn't done.
Okay, so she's going to say we need to look at all these leaders after the pandemic, but not to look at it now because we need leadership to get through to the end of the pandemic.
In terms of this pandemic.
That's my guess.
But I am very much focused, and our party is very much focused on how we're going to get people help in real time, how we're going to come together across parties to make sure that that happens. I don't personally think that the best
just to prove you to you that we're waiting on it. I've got the tab up right here. So this is Poilievre's there right now, but that's where the budget's going to be.
When we
flip
still
over
have
there
people
as soon as we
all
get to
across Ontario, since we're speaking about Ontario, who should be vaccinated, who have not been vaccinated, the essential workers that still had to go out today.
And on the Emergencies Act, Jagmeet Singh has called.
Okay. All right, so I think we've gotten the idea of what Annamie Paul wants, as I just went over a little bit there before. Now let's flip over to this live stream, because the Standing Committee for Finance is reporting something right now. We'll turn this on. I'm going to go fill up my coffee.
The same is
I'll
now
put this
occurring
on.
with technology.
Pierre Poilievre, he's a conservative. And he's rather hated and loved by many different groups, right? Lots of people really love him. Lots of people really don't like him. I'm going to put this up just for a moment, and I'm going to go fill up this Pokemon coffee cup. And when I get back, we should expect the budget to be very soon. I'll be like less than a minute here.
Can outpace our debts, so that we can replace a credit card economy with a paycheck economy, so that our people can be confident in their ability to pay down their mortgages, and our governments to pay down their debts, so that our programs upon which our most vulnerable rely will always have a solid financial footing, so that our hardworking public servants can continue to draw the salaries that they deserve. This is what it means to secure our future. Unfortunately, we have a government that is focused exclusively on the myopia of the here and now, taking incredible risks as we sit on the edge of this debt cliff. But Mr. Speaker, it does not have to be this way, because just as our history tells us of the folly of the past, it tells us about the hope for the future. And we in this party will build upon that hope and stand on the shoulders of our ancestors who gave us this mighty and great country, and let us keep Canada strong and free. Thank you.
And we're back. What's going on? How come there's nobody talking? What's going on? Are they just like cutting off right now and going to the budget now? Is that what's going on? Yeah, I see some people in the chat saying, and I'll go to full cam here so you can see what's going on in the chat.
I want to thank the honourable member. This is the end of the time as we're moving into the budget, which should start momentarily.
Can you guys hear that?
But when we do return, the honourable member will have 10 minutes of questions and comments.
I wonder if there's a way for me to...
when we resume debate.
Okay, yeah, so we can go full screen. So it seems like the budget's going to start right now. All right, we've got this... going here. Yeah, I see some people calling for saying that I need some mods in my chat. That might be something I do in the future. So if you want to be a mod for the chat to help me sort of moderate comments, make sure that everyone's being respectful in the chat, in the future, we're not going to be able to get it going now, but I really recommend joining my Discord server that we've made. There's a link in the description. Anyone who wants to be a mod can hop in there, and then we'll do mod applications in the future just to make sure that the people who are helping me to manage the chat here are at least a little bit vetted and are a part of the community. So yeah, there's a link in the description to join the Discord community, but I think that might be something that we need here going forward. But it looks like they're all like waiting here. I'm guessing Chrystia Freeland is going to walk into the room any second now with a big old stack of paper in her hands. It's probably going to be a very, very big document. Yeah, because when they brought up the let me show you this. When they brought up the fall fiscal update, I wonder if there's a photo of how big this. Okay, maybe you don't get perspective. Oh yeah, look at this. Look at this. Okay, I'm gonna pull it over so you can actually see it. Yeah, look at that big old stack. That's the fall economic update. So and that's like a smaller mini budget. So like, could you imagine like carrying like a big stack of papers? Like that's got to be like 5-10 pounds, man. I need to work out if I was going to be a federal finance minister. Carrying those things all day? Come on. All right. Any moment now. Okay, so I think what we're going to do now, I'm going to have this up on my screen. We're going to go full cam for a second. And I just want to say, again, thank you so much for hanging out with me here today. We're going to get information right about now about everything that's going to be inside of this budget. I'm sort of torn right now. Do you guys want me to go over some of the spoilers that we think could be inside of this budget? Because there were some leaks last night. I don't know if you saw my video that I posted on the channel today, but there were some leaks, some ideas on what could be in the budget from a senior government official that was unnamed by CBC, Globe and Mail, as well as Toronto Star. They all were reporting on a source came to them with information on the budget, but they couldn't identify them because they were not authorized to drop the information. Okay, we have okay. So let's go over some of the okay, perfect. Yeah, some of you have seen the video already, but let's go over some of the spoilers, some of the things that are expected to be in this budget. I'm going to pull it up here on my screen so I can show you my notes that I took as I was reading through all of these articles. It might be right here. Yes, okay. So this is just my scratch notes on what was going on here. So here are some pre-budget leak articles. These are the notes. I read a whole bunch of the articles and we sort of shifted over here to what I'm expecting to be inside of the budget based on these leaks. The biggest one, again, spoiler alert, is we're expecting a national childcare program. $2 billion spent this year. I believe this year or in the first years of it being implemented to just get it off the ground. And they're saying they're going to do it quickly. They're not going to consult provinces as much as they typically would, not going to consult stakeholders. They just want to get it done. Liberals have been promising this since the 70s, right? Hey, Golden, thank you so much for the super chat. That's so nice of you. I appreciate whenever anyone does that. Thank you so much for that. Golden says, I really appreciate everything you're doing. Oh, well, I appreciate you for tuning in, Golden. Thank you for that. So yeah, and it's looking like it could be around $10 a day. I don't know if I can zoom in here for you, get it a little bit bigger on screen. Looking to be $10 a day. Childcare, so around $200 a month for full-time childcare per one child. So that's interesting, right? We're gonna have to again wait and see if this is actually what's in the budget. So don't see this and think it's gospel and then tune away from the stream because they're going to announce what it actually is here very, very soon. benefits. There was lots of talk about the benefits in these articles, but not specifically by name of the CRB and any extension to EI, changing of the EI program. They didn't mention that in the articles, but they said that they're going to continue the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy and the rent subsidy, these supports for businesses. But it was sort of hinted at that they're likely going to extend the CRB until September, right? Right now, the program goes until September, but everyone only has 19 periods, 2-week periods they can apply. Out of a possible 26 over the course of the year. Oh, okay. Here's something from this budget.
As it is 4:05, it is my duty to interrupt the deliberations on the motion.
Here we go, gang.
Consequently, the debate will be held at a next session.
Consideration of Ways and Means proceedings number 2 concerning the budget presentation.
This is the budget.
Ms. Freeland, seconded by Madame Fortier, moves that this House approve in general the budgetary policy of the government. L'Honorable Ministre des Finances.
The Honorable Minister of Finance.
Here we go.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order
Okay, I'm going to turn this up a little bit.
I would like to table, in both official languages, the budget documents for 2021, including the notices of Ways and Means motions. Les détails concernant les mesures sont exposés.
The details regarding these measures are
We get
included
translation.
in these documents
Okay.
and pursuant to Standing Order 83.2. I ask that the study of these motions be added to the orders of the day.
Yeah, I'm going to turn up her on my end. I think it's almost maxed out. Oh, I can't. Never mind.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, let me know if there's any problems with volume, if you can't hear something, if you can't. Look at that stack of papers. What was I talking about? Look at that thing. And we're going to go through it all tonight. Maybe not all of it, but... Okay. See, Trudeau's there in person.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to begin by taking a moment to mourn the tragedy in Nova Scotia a year ago yesterday. To the families and
My
friends
voice is clipping. I'm going
of
to turn
the
that down a bit
22
then.
people who were
Thanks,
killed,
guys. It's
and
hard
to
for
all
me to
Nova
tell on my end.
Scotians, we grieve with you. This is also a day when people across Canada are fighting the most virulent wave of the virus we've experienced so far. Healthcare workers in many provinces are struggling to keep ICUs from overflowing, and millions of Canadians are facing stringent new restrictions. We're all tired, frustrated, and even afraid. But we will get through this. We'll do it together. Ce budget vise à finir la lutte.
We're going to do it together.
This budget is about finishing the fight against COVID. It's about healing the economic wounds left by the COVID recession. And it's about creating more jobs, as well as prosperity for Canadians in the days and in the decades to come.
L'objectif est de répondre aux besoins.
The goal is to meet the urgent needs of today and to build for the long term. This is a budget focused on middle-class Canadians. It's focused on pulling more Canadians up into the middle class. This is a plan that embraces this moment of global transformation to a green and clean economy.
This budget addresses 3 fundamental challenges. First, we need to conquer COVID. That means buying vaccines and supporting provincial and territorial healthcare systems. It means enforcing our quarantine rules at the border and within the country. It means providing Canadians and Canadian businesses with the support they need to get through these tough third-wave lockdowns and to come roaring back when the economy fully reopens. Second, we must punch our way out of the COVID recession. That means ensuring lost jobs are recovered as swiftly as possible and hard-hit businesses rebound quickly. It means providing support where COVID has struck the hardest, to women, to young people, to low-wage workers, and to small and medium-sized businesses, especially in tourism and hospitality. The final challenge is to build a more resilient Canada. Better, more fair, more prosperous, and more innovative. That means investing in Canada's green transition and the green jobs that go with it, in Canada's digital transformation and Canadian innovation, and in building infrastructure for a dynamic, growing country. And it means providing Canadians with social infrastructure, from early learning and childcare to student grants to income top-ups, so the middle class can flourish and more Canadians can join it.
Income top-ups, that's interesting. Could be an
Nos
EI
aînés ont
change.
été les
Change to the EI
principaux.
program. We talked about that yesterday on the show.
Our elders have been this virus's principal victims. The pandemic has preyed on them mercilessly, ending thousands of lives and forcing all seniors into fearful isolation. We have failed so many of those living in long-term care facilities. To them and to their families, let me say this. I am so sorry. We owe you so much better than this. That's why we propose a $3 billion investment to help ensure that provinces and territories provide a high standard of care in their long-term care facilities. And we are delivering today on our promise to increase old age security for Canadian men and women aged 75 and older.
Our government has been urgently procuring vaccines since last spring and providing them at no cost to Canadians. Nearly 10 million Canadians have received at least one dose of vaccine. By the end of September, Canada will have received 100 million doses, enough to fully vaccinate every adult Canadian. We need to be ready for new variants of COVID, and we must have the booster shots that will allow us to keep them in check. That's why we're rebuilding our national biomanufacturing capacity, so that we can make these vaccines here in Canada. Canada has brilliant scientists and entrepreneurs. We'll support them with an investment of $2.2 billion in biomanufacturing and life sciences. Lorsque la COVID a frappé pour la première fois,
when COVID first hit, it pushed our country into its deepest recession since the Great Depression.
Toutefois, il s'agit d'une choc.
This, however, is an economic shock of a very particular kind. We are not suffering because of endogenous flaws or imbalances within our economy. Rather, the COVID recession is driven by an entirely external event, like the economic devastation of a flood, a blizzard, a wildfire, or other natural disaster. That is why an essential part of Canada's fight against COVID has been unprecedented. The unprecedented level of federal support for Canadians and Canadian businesses has been offered. We knew that Canadians needed a lifeline to get through this COVID storm. And our approach has worked. Canada's GDP grew by almost 10% in the fourth quarter of last year. We will continue to do whatever it takes. Our government is prepared to extend support measures as long as the fight against this virus requires them. As Canada pivots to recovery Our economic plan will do the same.
We promised last year to spend up to $100 billion over 3 years to get Canada back to work and to ensure the lives and prospects of Canadians are not permanently stunted by this pandemic recession. This budget keeps that promise. Altogether, we will create nearly 500,000 new training and work experience opportunities for Canadians. We will fulfill our throne speech commitment to create 1 million jobs by the end of this year.
1 million jobs by the end of the year?
Some will say our sense of urgency is misplaced.
How?
Some will say that we're spending too much. To them, I ask this. Did you lose your job during a COVID lockdown? Were you reluctantly let go by your small business employers who were like a family to you, but simply could not afford your salary any longer? Are you worried you'll be laid off in this third wave? Are you a mother forced to quit the dream job you fought to get because there was no way to keep working while caring for your young children? Did you graduate last spring, and are you still struggling to find work?
It sounds like there's going to be student
support. Is your
support
family business,
based on what she's saying,
launched perhaps by your parents, and which you'd hope to pass on to your children, now struggling under a sudden burden of debt and fending off bankruptcy through sheer grit and determination every day? If COVID has taught us anything, it's that we're all in this together. Our country cannot prosper if we leave hundreds of thousands of Canadians behind. The world has learned the lesson of 2009, the cost of allowing economic hardship to fester. In some countries, democracy itself has been threatened by that mistake.
Talking about
We will
assault on the Capitol.
not let that happen in Canada. Environ 300,000 Canadiens.
This is going to be a little louder than me, though.
About 300,000 Canadians who had a job before the pandemic are still out of work. And more Canadians may lose their jobs in this month's lockdowns. To support Canadian workers as we fight the third wave, and to provide an economic bridge to a fully recovered economy, we will build on the enhancements we have made during the pandemic.
Is that to EI?
We will maintain flexible access to employment insurance benefits for another year until the fall of 2022.
Wow.
The Canada Recovery Benefit, which we created to support Canadians not covered by employment insurance, will remain in place through September 25th and extend an additional 12 weeks of benefits to Canadians.
Okay, so that sounds like they're adding more periods,
As
but they're not
our
extending
economy
the program.
fully reopens over the summer, the benefit amount will go to $300 a week after July 17th.
Les travailleurs à faible revenu au Canada.
Low-wage workers in Canada work harder than anyone else in this country for less pay.
Is that what
in the past year, they have faced both significant infection risks as well as layoffs. And many people live below the poverty line, even though they work full-time. We cannot ignore their contribution and their hardship, and we will not.
We're going to have to wait to see the actual document. We're going to read this after she does it, after it's released online.
To expand the Canada Workers' Benefit to invest $8.9 billion over 6 years in additional support for low-wage workers. This will extend income top-ups to about 1 million more Canadians and lift nearly 100,000 people out of poverty. And this budget will introduce a $15 an hour federal minimum wage.
Wow, that's unexpected.
COVID has exposed the dangerous inadequacy of sickness benefits in Canada. We will do our part and fulfill our campaign commitment by extending EI sickness benefits from 15 to 26 weeks.
They were talking about that in debates previously.
We know the pandemic has exacerbated systemic barriers faced by racialized Canadians. So, Budget 2021 provides additional funding for the Black Entrepreneurship Program, as well as an investment in a Black-led philanthropic endowment fund to help fight anti-Black racism and improve social and economic outcomes in Black communities. One of the most striking aspects of the pandemic has been the historic sacrifice young Canadians have made to protect their parents and grandparents. Our youth have paid a high price to keep the rest of us safe. We cannot and we will not allow young Canadians to become a lost generation. They need our support to launch their adult lives and careers in post-COVID Canada, and they will get it. We will invest $5.7 billion over 5 years in Canada's youth. We will make college and university more accessible and affordable. We will create job openings in skilled trades and high-tech industries, and we will double the Canada Student Grant for 2 more years, while extending the waiver of interest on federal student loans through March 2030. More than 350,000 low-income student borrowers will also have access to more generous repayment assistance.
Interesting. Now, the federal portion of the student loans, that's not as large as most of the provincial parts of it, so it's not as substantial as it sounds.
COVID has brutally exposed something women have long known. Without childcare, parents, usually mothers, can't work. The closing of our schools and daycares drove women's participation in the labor force down to its lowest level in more than 2 decades. Early learning and childcare has long been a feminist issue. COVID has shown us that it's an urgent economic issue, too. I was 2 years old when the Royal Commission on the Status of Women urged Canada to establish a universal system of early learning and childcare. My mother was one of Canada's redoubtable second wave of feminists who fought, and outside Quebec failed to make that recommendation a reality. A generation after that, Paul Martin and Ken Dryden tried again. This half-century of struggle is a testament to the difficulty and complexity of the task. But this time, we're going to do it. This budget is the map and the trailhead. There is agreement across the political spectrum that early learning and childcare is the national economic policy we need now. This is social infrastructure that will drive jobs and growth. This is feminist economic policy. This is smart economic policy. That's why this budget commits up to $30 billion over 5 years, reaching $9.2 billion every year permanently to build a high-quality, affordable, and accessible early learning and childcare system across Canada. This is not an effort that will deliver instant gratification.
Interesting note.
We are building something that, of necessity, must be constructed collaboratively and for the long term. But I have confidence in us. I have confidence that we are a country that believes in investing in our future, in our children, and in our young parents. Here is our goal. 5 years from now, parents across the country should have access to high-quality early learning and childcare for an average of $10 a day.
$10 per day, okay.
I make this promise to Canadians today, speaking as your finance minister and as a working mother. We will get it done.
Unless there is an election, like what Annamie Paul was saying.
Alors que nous prenons
In making this historic commitment, I want to thank the visionary leaders of Quebec, particularly Quebec's feminists, who have shown the rest of Canada the way forward. This plan will, of course, also provide additional resources to Quebec, which might well use them to further support an early learning and childcare system.
This is one of the issues that is
talked
about
already the envy
because in Quebec they already have a pretty well-functioning childcare service. So they're saying, "Hey, we're not going to mess with what you've got there. We're going to make it better."
Small businesses are the vital heart of our economy, and they have been hardest hit by the lockdowns. Healing the wounds of COVID requires a rescue plan for them. So, Budget 2021 proposes to extend the wage subsidy, rent subsidy, and lockdown support for businesses and other employers until September 25, 2021, for an estimated total of $12.1 billion in additional support. To help the hardest hit businesses pivot back to growth, we propose a new Canada Recovery Hiring Program, which will run from June to November and will provide $595 million to make it easier for businesses to hire back laid-off workers or to bring on new ones. But our government will do much more than execute a rescue. With this budget, we will make unprecedented investments in Canada's small businesses, helping them invest in new technologies and innovation. We will invest up to $4 billion to help up to 160,000 small and medium-sized businesses buy and adopt the new technologies they need to grow. The Canada Digital Adoption Program will also provide businesses with the advice and help they need to get the most out of these new technologies by training 28,000 young Canadians, a Canadian Technology Corps, and sending them out to work with our small and medium-sized businesses.
This could be part of the jobs.
This groundbreaking program will help Canadian small businesses go digital and become more competitive and efficient. Le financement accru.
Increased funding for the Venture Capital Catalyst Initiative will help provide financing to innovative Canadian businesses so they can grow. We will also encourage businesses to invest in themselves. We will allow immediate expensing of up to $1.5 million of eligible investments by Canadian-controlled private corporations in each of the next 3 years. These larger deductions will support 325,000 businesses in making critical investments and will represent $2.2 billion in total savings to them over the next 5 years. Building for the future means investing in innovation and entrepreneurs. So, we propose to invest in the next phase of the Pan-Canadian Artificial Intelligence Strategy and to launch similar strategies in genomics and quantum science, areas where Canada is a global leader.
In 2020, job growth means
I'm always in support of more
growth.
support for science.
This budget sets out a plan to help achieve GHG emissions reductions of 36% from 2005 levels by 2030 and puts us on a path to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. It puts in place the funding to achieve our 25% land and marine conservation targets by 2025. En effectuant des investissements.
By making targeted investments in transformational technologies, we can ensure that Canada benefits from the next wave of global investment and growth. The resource and manufacturing sectors that are Canada's traditional economic pillars, energy, mining, agriculture, forestry, steel, aluminum, autos, aerospace, will be the foundation of our new, resilient, and sustainable economy. Canada will become more productive and competitive by supplying the green exports the world wants and needs. That is why we propose a historic investment of a further $5 billion over 7 years, starting in 2021, 2022 in the Net Zero Accelerator. With this added support, on top of the $3 billion we committed in December, the Net Zero Accelerator will help even more companies invest to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions while continuing to grow their businesses.
We will propel the green transition through new tax measures, including for zero emissions technology, carbon capture and storage, and green hydrogen. We are at a pivotal moment in the green transformation. We can lead, or we can be left behind. Our government knows that the only choice for Canada is to be in the vanguard. Our growing population is one of our great economic strengths, and a growing country needs to build. We need to build housing. We need to build public transit. We need to build broadband. We need to build infrastructure. And we will. We will invest $2.5 billion and reallocate $1.3 billion in existing funding to help build, repair, and support 35,000 housing units. And we will support the conversion to housing of the empty office space that has appeared in our downtowns by reallocating $300 million from the Rental Construction Financing Initiative. Houses should not be passive investment vehicles for offshore money. They should be homes for Canadian families. So, on January 1st, 2022, our government will introduce Canada's first national tax on vacant property owned by non-resident, non-Canadians. Une croissance forte.
So
strong, sustained growth also depends on modern transit.
I wonder how much of an impact that's going to make. It doesn't have to do with anything with the interest rates that are really pushing the housing market.
$14.9 billion over 8 years to build new public transit, electrify existing transit systems, and help to connect rural, remote, and Indigenous communities. Therefore, we are committing an additional $1 billion over 6 years for the Universal Broadband Fund to accelerate access to high-speed internet in rural and remote communities.
We intend to draw even more talented, highly skilled people to Canada, including international students.
Remember, we're going to go over every single thing we've heard here after this stream, so stay tuned.
Easier to navigate,
we're going to dive right into the actual budget.
And more efficient
find out what
in
all this actually
welcoming
means.
the dynamic new Canadians who add to Canada's strength.
They're all looking at their phones.
Our government
See, like,
has made
boom,
progress
boom, boom.
in righting the
Like,
historic
we're on our camera, it's
wrongs
fine.
in Canada's relationship with Indigenous peoples. But we still have a lot of work ahead. It's important to note that Indigenous peoples have led the way in battling COVID. Their success is a credit to Indigenous leadership and self-governance. We will invest more than $18 billion to further narrow gaps between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples, to support healthy, safe, and prosperous Indigenous communities, and to advance reconciliation with First Nations, Inuit, and the Métis Nation. We will invest more than $6 billion for infrastructure in Indigenous communities and $2.2 billion to help end the national tragedy of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. This has been a year when we have learned that each of us truly is our brothers and our sisters' keeper. Solidarity is getting us through this pandemic, and solidarity depends on each of us bearing our fair share of the collective burden. That's why, now more than ever, fairness in our tax system is essential.
To ensure our system is fair, this budget will invest in the fight against tax evasion, shine a light on beneficial ownership arrangements, and ensure that multinational corporations pay their fair share of tax in Canada. Our government is committed to working with our partners at the OECD to find multilateral solutions to the dangerous race to the bottom in corporate taxation. That includes work to conclude a deal on taxing large digital services companies. We are optimistic that such a deal can be reached this summer. Meanwhile, this budget reaffirms our government's commitment to impose such a tax unilaterally until an acceptable multilateral approach comes into effect. It's also fair to ask those who have prospered in this bleak year to do a little more to help those who still need help.
This is what the NDP have called for.
That is why we are introducing a luxury tax on new cars and private aircraft worth more than $100,000 and on pleasure boats worth more than $250,000.
I wonder how much that's really going to generate. You know, is it going to be enough to fund more programs for people?
This budget lives up to our promise to do whatever it takes to support Canadians in the fight against COVID. And it makes significant investments in our future. All of this costs a lot of money. So it's entirely appropriate to ask,
pay for it?
Can we afford it? We can. And here's why.
She said in the past,
First,
because if interest rates are low, they can
this
take
is a
out a bunch of
budget
debt.
that invests in growth. The best way to pay our debts is to grow our economy. The investments this budget makes in early learning and childcare, in small businesses, in students, in innovation, in public transit, in housing, in broadband, and in the green transition are all investments in jobs and growth. We are building Canada's social infrastructure and our physical infrastructure. We are building our human capital and our physical capital. Canada is a young, vast country with a tremendous capacity for growth. This budget will fuel that. These are investments in our future, and they will yield great dividends. In fact, in today's low interest rate environment, not only can we afford these investments, it would be short-sighted of us not to make them. Second, because our decision last year to support Canadians is already paying off. Decisive action prevented economic scarring in our businesses and our households, allowing the Canadian economy to begin strongly rebounding from the COVID recession, even before we finished our fight against the virus. Third, because our government has a plan and we keep our promises. We said in the fall economic statement that we would invest up to $100 billion over 3 years to support Canada's economic recovery. And that's what we are outlining here today. We predicted a deficit for 2020-2021 of $381.6 billion. We've spent less than we provisioned for. Our deficit for 2020-2021 is $354.2 billion, below our forecast. Finally, and crucially, we can afford this ambitious budget because the investments we propose today are responsible and sustainable. We understand that there are limits to our capacity to borrow and that the world will not write Canada any blank checks. We don't expect any. This budget shows a declining debt to GDP ratio and a declining deficit, with the debt to GDP ratio falling to 49.2% by 2025-2026, and the deficit falling to 1.1%.
Debt to GDP is how much we make as a country in our GDP compared to what our
the extraordinary
debt is
spending
currently
we
as a
have
country.
undertaken to support Canadians through this
You already knew
crisis
that.
and to stimulate a rapid recovery in jobs is temporary and finite. And our proposed long-term investments will permanently boost Canada's economic capacity. En 2015, Monsieur le Président,
In 2015, Mr. Speaker, this federal government was elected on a promise to help middle-class Canadians and people working hard to join the middle class. We promised to invest in workers and their prosperity, in long-term growth for all of us. And we did. Today, we meet a new challenge, the greatest our country has faced in a generation, with a renewed promise.
opportunity is coming. Growth is coming. Jobs are coming. After a long, grim year, Canadians are ready to recover and to rebuild. We will finish the fight against COVID. We will all get back to work. And we will come roaring back. Thank you.
Okay. So there's the budget. I wonder, do they go into any more details here? In this?
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The honourable member for Abbotsford.
Good try. Well, Mr. Speaker, let me be the first to formally congratulate my colleague on becoming the first female finance minister to table a federal budget in this House.
Hear, hear.
And let me add that it's a remarkable accomplishment. It's long overdue, and I believe it defines a new role model for Canadian women across our country to aspire to. So again, congratulations, Minister. Now, I note that the Prime Minister's mandate letter to the Minister dated January 15th
yeah, that's what we're talking about. Trudeau said not to make new
fiscal
spending.
anchor to guide her work. The budget fails to do that. Instead, the budget contains vague references to declining debt to GDP ratio starting 2 years from now. Turns out that was the Liberal government's old fiscal anchor, so there was nothing new about this one. In fact, your anchor doesn't even include measurable targets that will give Canadians the comfort to know that their government understands the importance of proper debt management. All that we get are references to the trajectory of the debt to GDP anchor. So my question is this: why did the Minister not deliver a new fiscal anchor the way the Prime Minister had directed her to do?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And let me just start by thanking the member opposite for those generous congratulations. And I think it would be appropriate for me today to think about Kim Campbell, the first woman Prime Minister of Canada, who was, of course,
many people think Christopher Freeland is pushing to be a Prime Minister in the future.
House is that all of us believe it's important to advance the cause of women in Canada. When it comes to a fiscal anchor, Mr. Speaker, I very much agree with the member opposite that it is important for our spending to be reasonable and sustainable and prudent. And that's why it was important for us in this budget to hit some key fiscal markers. First of all, we were clear in the fall economic statement that we would spend up to $100 billion in stimulus over 3 years. We have kept that promise. Perhaps more crucially, we have been clear in this budget, both in our commitment and also in our demonstrated actions, that following the extraordinary spending of this year, Canada's debt to GDP ratio will decline. And we show in our fiscal tables a clear declining trajectory, ending in 25-26 at a 49.2% debt to GDP ratio. Further, as we point out in the budget document, we commit to unwinding the COVID-related deficits, and our budget and our fiscal projections show precisely that. In 25-26, we come to a deficit of just 1.1%. So
we're gonna keep on this, listening to the comments, but I want to do a quick, very, very short recap here on what was said in this budget. I'm just going to run down the main big points. We're going to get into all of this later on the stream when we actually get our hands on the budget, take a look deeper inside of it, see what's going on. I'll do this summary in a moment. I want to hear this next question.
For Joliette. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It is now my turn to sincerely congratulate the Minister of Finance.
I think we have a second here. So some big things here are going to be in this. They say they're finishing the fight for COVID. They want to give funding for long-term care, bump up OAS. Thank you guys for the super chats too. Doug Fordisms and Gustavo Palomino. Doug Fordism says Russell's commitment to being nonpartisan is genuinely impressive. Keep up the great work. Oh, that's so nice of you to say. I really appreciate that. That's really one of my goals here on the channel. And Gustavo says, how about the child benefit will increase or no? I'll talk on that in a moment, Gustavo. We will touch on that. But they passed an increase last week. So
promise made regarding fighting tax avoidance and evasion.
Thank you guys for the super chats.
Of course,
that's so
here
nice of you.
It still hasn't been fully implemented, but at least it's a concrete set of intentions. I'd like to congratulate the minister on this. Now, in my opinion, there are two major gaps in this budget. First of all, health funding. Quebec and the provinces have asked for more health funding. We are in the middle of a health crisis. For the Bloc Québécois, this is the moment to fix this. If not now, then when? And then secondly, the main victims of this pandemic have been seniors. We have been asking for old age security to be increased as of 65 years of age, instead of creating a two-tier system for seniors. But that's not in the budget. Why didn't the Minister of Finance include those two measures in the budget? Especially since when we look at the difference in the deficit between the fall economic statement and the deficit here in the budget, well, the difference would correspond to those two measures. So is this a political choice? Thank you. I would just like to remind members.
Okay, so it looks like my audio is a little bit crackling. I wonder if it's because I'm too loud or if it's because of the stream. Is it any better now that I'm not clipping at all? Let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for the question. And I'd like to thank my colleague for all the fascinating discussions that we've had throughout the preparation process of this budget. I've greatly appreciated working with him. Now, first of all, I am very pleased that my honorable colleague has seen that we are taking action, especially now, during a pandemic. Social solidarity is crucial. And in order to reach a state of social solidarity, everyone needs to pay their fair share. We need to focus on that, and I'm looking forward to working with all my colleagues on this important point. Now,
hopefully this is a little bit better for you.
My colleague is from Quebec.
We just refreshed it.
And so I would like to take a moment to state for all members in this House that this budget and the commitments in it clearly show the importance of Quebec's political leadership. More than 20 years ago,
there's a translation
Quebec
going on right now, so her voice not meeting it. It's just because she's speaking in French.
It was difficult. It was very, very expensive. In fact, that's what I was told by Quebec architects of the system, that it was very expensive. I know. But Quebec showed us something very important. That
Systems, thank you so much for the super chat. That's so nice of you. System says, why do horses run on the course? This sounds like a setup for a punchline.
Thus,
Systems, what's the punchline?
It is very important for me as an Anglophone from Toronto to say thank you to Quebec. I don't see any women from Quebec here in the room right now, but I would really like to thank the feminists of Quebec who have worked so hard to build that program. Thank you. Now, regarding the two other points that my colleague raised, first of all, on health funding. Last month,
thanks, Systems.
We
yes, I am
announced
using a Focusrite.
that we will be contributing $5 billion additional dollars for health for the provinces in order to help them fight the third wave of COVID-19. We understand that this is expensive, and the federal government is here to help.
Yeah, at a Provenzano. Yeah, thank you for the super chat. No UBI, $1,200 for CRB starting in July. We're going to go into the details of what was inside the budget there when it comes to these benefits, but it sounds like they could be reducing the CRB amount come July for people who are still able to apply for it. Now, it doesn't seem entirely fair in some ways for people who have been not applying, who didn't apply earlier, but we're going to get into that very soon. Thank you so much for the super chat, Ada. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. Thank you.
Regarding the fact that the deficit is lower than what was projected, I hope everyone will agree with me that that's a good thing.
Raising the roof.
And it shows that our government is taking a cautious approach. Thank you.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for New Westminster Burnaby, a 1 minute.
Okay, so let's take a pause here. We're going to pick up exactly where we just left off. I want to do a quick summary on the things we just heard, the things we are expecting to hear people question right here in this, as well as what we're going to dig into a little bit later. So I'm going to look at my notes here as we go through. We heard a lot of things. They want to bring long-term care. They want to improve long-term care across the provinces. That's one thing they've mentioned. $3 billion to help the provinces do so. Old age security. This is only for seniors 75 years and older. Other parties have wanted to lower that age, an increase on the OAS of $100. $2.2 billion invested in biomanufacturing, having the capacity to create vaccines here in Canada for the future. We've also got, they're saying they're going to extend support measures as long as required, and that the plan will be able to pivot over time. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Gustavo Palomino. My audio is no good. Oh, okay. My voice is still crackling. Oh, that is so frustrating. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm going to get through the end of this summary and we'll figure this out. Created 1 million jobs by the end of the year. Well, maybe we can even go to a different microphone. We'll see. Okay, here's hoping that this mic quality is a little bit better. I'm going to turn myself down a bit. Maybe I was clipping there, and hopefully this gets a little bit better. We also heard from the government saying that they're going to create 1 million jobs by the end of the year. We're going to have to look into how they're planning on doing that. More training. They said they want to bring in more. They said they want to bring in more training for younger Canadians in tech to help small businesses. Also, the CRB potentially being reduced to $1,200 per month, I believe. Yeah, $1,200 per month. So we're gonna have to see how that goes when we get into it. Canada Workers Benefit increase of $8.9 billion over 6 years. Support for low wage workers. A $15 federal minimum wage all across the country. EI sickness extended to 26 weeks, up from the current 15. Funding for Black entrepreneurs, $5.7 billion in 5 years for youth, college, university more accessible. They want to create job openings in skilled trades and high-tech industries. They want to double the student grant and pause all student loan interest on the federal portion of student debt up until 2030. $30 billion over 5 years, up to $9.2 billion in permanent spending for early learning and childcare. Against the mandate, they said they didn't want to create new spending, but it seems like they're going to create just over $9 billion per year in 5 years in order to implement this $10 per day childcare plan. They're extending the CEWS, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, and the Canada Emergency Rent Subsidy. These are both going to be extended. And thank you guys so much for the super chats. That's so nice. I like that sticker, Silverstone Malik. That's so nice of you. You guys, I appreciate you guys for being here, tuning into the stream. Never feel like you have to send in a super chat or something like that, but I do appreciate it. It makes me feel like, hey, people actually are liking what I'm doing here. So I appreciate that. Golden also says disability once again gets left behind, no help. Yeah, we're gonna have to look into that. What other support there is for disability now? Largely disability in many cases is a provincial jurisdiction, if I remember correctly. So maybe they can't implement as much on that front. But yeah, thank you for the super chat, Golden. That's so nice of you. Yeah, okay, perfect. We're going to keep going through here, and we're going to get back to these questions that are going on. Extra financing for a venture capital fund, like putting more money into a fund that can support more entrepreneurs and businesses, and they're going to allow expensing on big companies, private companies, not necessarily so big, of up to $1.5 million. Essentially, they can say, hey, we didn't actually make all that money this year because we spent $1.5 million in expenses upgrading our business, so they can write that off on their taxes, not have to pay as much tax. In order to get people into a green and tech-based economy. They want to create a pan-Canadian AI strategy, genomics, quantum science funding, pushing Canada forward in the science area. Manufacturing traditional jobs will still be supported, but not left behind in the green economy, but they're going to try to transition here. We see $5 billion over 7 years in net zero emissions to help companies invest in green growth, investing in infrastructure. They're going to try to create more housing. They mentioned turning downtown office space into potential residential units. $14.9 billion, if I heard correctly, on new transit, making it electric, developing a universal broadband fund. So interesting stuff here. I'm hoping my audio's a little bit better now. I'm not seeing as many things in the chat, so here's hoping that it's a little bit better for you. right? We also have some tax changes. It's like a luxury tax on people who are spending over $100,000 on a car, on a boat, on a private jet, these sort of things. $250,000 for the boat, I believe. So a little bit of a difference for yachts versus cars. I don't understand that entirely. And they also want to invest against tax evasion. So companies that are held outside of the country and are making profits in Canada, they want to more heavily tax. Some people are going to push against this, saying, hey, we want to make this a better place for people to open businesses in Canada. That's what many people who would be against something like that would say. And then the question comes down to, how are we going to pay for this all? And this is the answer she gave. She says, we need to grow the Canadian economy by investing in it. So we're saying all the money we're putting in here, we're going to get back in the future. Maybe not dollar for dollar, but we're going to increase the productivity. She says we can afford it, especially in these low interest rate environments. Right now, interest rates are at historic lows, and to implement programs, the Canadian government takes out debt. Just like people take a mortgage to buy a house, the Canadian government writes a bunch of IOUs to pay off for these programs. Right now, we have super low interest rates. Canada is saying, hey, we want to lock in these low interest rates and spend a whole bunch right now, because when are we ever going to have these low interest rates again? That's her response. And they have a lower deficit over the past year than they expected, expecting it to be around $354.2 billion over the past year, as opposed to the $400 billion forecast that was initially set up there. And then they're basically saying the investments will pay for themselves if we invest in these in things that are going to grow our economy. This is where the growth needs to be. So these are some of the highlights from this budget that just went down. We're going to hop back in here to the questions. I'll get into questions from you guys, and later in the stream, we're going to get our hands on this budget and take some questions in the chat, as well as some the things that we think are important to really get the fine details on. How is this CRB lowering going to work? How is that fair for people who didn't apply for earlier benefits but now are going to be applying for potentially lower benefits in the future periods? We're going to get into exactly how that's going to work. All right, I'm gonna. Hopefully my mic helps there. I just sort of reset the power to it. Okay, sorry you guys for this crackling. Oh, maybe that's a little bit better. Maybe that's a little bit better. Hopefully my audio is a little bit better. Thank you guys for letting me know. Again, I haven't done a live stream this long before, so I'm just working through the kinks here with you guys. So those are some of the main comments. I'm going to flip over here to the questions that are being asked.
Minute question and hopefully a 1 minute answer. I know this is very difficult, but please.
All right.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Et j'aimerais aussi
taking a second here to grab some more coffee, because we're going to need it today. I'll be right back.
I'd also like to congratulate the Minister of Finance on this historic moment. Congratulations.
Long wait for budget, Mr. Speaker. As you know, as Canadians have been hit hard by this pandemic. And frontline workers who are looking for measures, looking for a functioning paid sick leave program, are going to come away profoundly disappointed by this budget. But billionaires will be happy because they continue to get a free ride at a time of overwhelming inequality and unprecedented increases in wealth for Canada's billionaires. This Liberal government has refused to put into place a wealth tax or end pandemic profiteering on the backs of Canadians. Tout ce qu'il offre, c'est une vague promesse de dealer avec les 20.
All it offers is a vague promise to deal with the $25 billion we lose each year to tax evasion.
Government? Why does the finance minister, why does the prime minister refuse to put into place measures so that the ultra wealthy in this country pay their fair share?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister in 60 seconds or less, please.
I'm going to be super quick. We're talking a lot about women, and since this is a question from the NDP, and since I did mention my mother in my speech, I just want to point out to the member opposite, she ran for the NDP in Edmonton Strathcona, now an NDP seat. So we have more in common than you might think. On Canadian workers, let me just say, our expansion of the Canada Workers Benefit is historic. No one should work full-time in Canada and live in poverty, but millions of people do. This investment will lift 100,000 Canadians out of poverty and will expand by 1 million people the Canadians we support. I think that is great for Canadian workers. I have to say, I think that's something my mother, were she still alive, would support too.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for now. The Honourable Member for Abbotsford.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. These are unprecedented times, and today we have the biggest spending budget in Canadian history. But this budget comes far too late. It is this federal government's first budget in well over 2 years.
Hopefully my mic is a little
For
better
that
for you guys.
long,
I
Canadians have
apologize
been
for the
without a
inconvenience
comprehensive
that,
plan for the
mic
economy
problems I'm having, but we're gonna
to
keep
guide
going
us
here.
through what has now become the stormiest time of our lifetime. I believe that Canadians will feel let down by this budget. They were expecting a comprehensive plan to safely reopen our economy, to get Canadians vaccinated and back to work again, to help struggling small businesses back up on their feet, to manage the massive looming financial consequences of this pandemic, including a clear fiscal anchor that I mentioned earlier. And of course, most importantly, to provide future generations of Canadians with the hope and confidence that the Canadian dream is still alive and well. And my fear is that Canadians will be profoundly disappointed. Now, to be sure, there appear to be a number of positive measures in this budget, especially those that continue to support Canadians in their time of need as they struggle to make it through to the end of the pandemic. And we will carefully review and analyze them to see whether they are sufficient to help our country through this difficult time and to secure our long-term future. So far, I'm not encouraged, but we will have more to say in the days ahead. Until then and until tomorrow, I move that the debate be now adjourned.
Mr. Fass, seconded by Mr. Dalton, moves that the debate be now adjourned. Conformément à l'article 83.2.
Pursuing to Standing Order 83.2, this motion is deemed adopted. This House stands adjourned until tomorrow at 10 a.m.
So tomorrow at 10 a.m. we're going to get more details here, guys. All right. So lots to take a look at here. Let's dive into some of these most important points. And hopefully my audio setup here will be good enough to get us through this. All right. So let's see if we can find this. So this is what I was watching. Let's see if we can find federal budget text. We're going to see if we can get our hands on exactly what has just been brought to the table. Okay, so we see an hour ago text, a Liberals pet pledge. Okay, let's see if any of these documents have links here. And if you guys are in my Discord as well, let me know if you can send me some of your links to this document if you have it already. Okay. I'm not seeing anything here about links to the budget. Let's see if there's one for the Government of Canada. Federal Budget 2021 document. Budget 2021. Okay, so it is here. It is here. We can get some of our answers here. All right. Okay, I'm going to keep on trying to fix this audio. I apologize, guys, for the problems here. Okay. Hopefully this is a little bit better. I just unplugged my my thing here that you maybe you can't see it, but this is hopefully what we're gonna deal with audio right now. Okay, so let's get into this budget. We're going to I'm just gonna download the budget so we can have the document of it here on my computer. Okay. Oh yay! It worked. Yes. Okay. All I needed to do, so simple, everyone. All I needed to do. Unplug your audio interface. like look at this. I'm going to show you this crappy camera to use this, but this is my oh no. Oh my goodness, I need to learn not to mess with my setup here. I just knocked over my entire camera. Can I get an F in the chat? Can I get an F in the chat for my my setup fail just now? F's in the chat. Okay, we're back. I clearly need to work on this streaming stuff. Oh my gosh, I spilled my water here. Okay, but there is important work to be done, gang. There is important work to be done. You can't cry over spilt milk or spilt coffee. Yeah, Wreck-It Russell. I like that, Gary or Jerry. Wreck-It Russell. That's pretty much me right now in this stream. Hopefully we get, like, as soon as we get the audio problems sorted, of course, I spill my water all over my desk, knock over my webcam. Oh my goodness. This is a bad omen for this budget. No, I'm just joking. Okay. So, oh my gosh, that's a lot of water. Okay. So I'm just going to see F's in the chat for the rest of this entire stream right now, just based on that 3-minute period right there. Okay, let's get into a little bit of this. I am going to work around this water for now. I don't want to leave you guys. I don't want to leave you. Okay, let's get in here. This is the budget. This is the document itself, the actual document that they just talked about in the House of Commons. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through here on some of these bigger points that more people are going to be applied for, and let me know what you want me to look into first when we get into this. But what I'm interested in is the biggest. Yeah, maybe people are right. I should clean up this water before I get too deep in. Do you guys see this? Okay, the literally water on the bottom of my keyboard. Okay, so I'm going to, just so you have some solid reading material here. Let me search for CRB. I'm going to leave this document up here right now, and we'll see if there's any information there. I'm going to grab a towel. You guys get to watch me clean up my system. This is the high quality content that you come to my channel for. You come to watch me knock things over, Wreck-It Russell, and and clean things up. I'll be right back. We've got it. Whoever said these streams weren't entertaining, right? Oh my gosh. Oh, I almost just knocked my coffee off the desk. Guys, something is wrong with me. Maybe this is due to the 15th coffee of the day. That's good enough for me. All right. Oh my goodness. Thank you for the super chat, Paula. That's so nice of you. Thank you, Russell. You're doing great on Canadian issues. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in, Paula. I really appreciate the super chat. That's so nice of you, man. I have the best people tuning into these shows because people say Canadians are nice, but I really believe it from coming on these live streams. You guys are so sweet and supportive. I love it. Okay, so let's get into it. Yeah, not an actual 15th coffee. Probably number 4 on the day. I'm not going to die on the stream. Could you imagine? That would be the cherry on top, having a heart attack in this chair right now with 1,200 people watching. This is how she goes. This is 2021. This is my 2021 so far. Okay, so we want to find out what's happening here with the changes here on the CRB. That's the first thing we're going to take a look at here. Of course, we're going to go into all of the details here. Okay, so this is part of the intro here. There's 6 mentions of the CRB in the document. All right, let's see what change. Okay, so here we go. The Canada Emergency Response Benefit was introduced as part of Canada's COVID-19 Economic Response Plan to provide immediate assistance to Canadians not eligible for EI benefits. The government's committed to continuing support for the CRB, the CRSB, the CRCB, and the CERB and Canada Recovery Benefits are expected to this is how much it's going to cost. Okay, so no details on the rolling down that she mentioned. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. Okay, all right. Here's the details. Let me pull up my annotator. Okay, so the government proposes to provide up to 12 additional weeks of income support for claimants who will start exhausting their 38 weeks of Canada Recovery Benefit on June 19th. The first 4 of these additional 12 weeks will be paid at $500 per week, and the remaining 8 weeks will be paid at a lower amount of $300 per week. Oh. All new Canada Recovery Benefit claimants after July 17th, 2021 would also receive the lower rate of $300 per week. The government also proposes to provide an additional 4 weeks, up to a maximum of 42 weeks for the Canada Recovery Caregiving Benefit. The government will also seek legislative authorities to make further extensions as necessary, past September 25th, 2021, and until no later than November 20th, 2021. To both CRB suite of supports, including caregiving and sickness benefits, as well as employment insurance regular benefits, corresponding amendments to the Canada Labour Code. Okay, so let's break this down. This is what's happening. So as of right now, you guys already know that the CRB, there are 19 periods in which you can apply out of a possible 26 periods across the year. So they're going to extend this and add 6 new periods, 6 more periods that you can apply for the first 4 of these additional 12 weeks. So the first 2 application periods, it's going to be the same. Past June 19th, it's going to be the $500 per week. I don't know why they say per week, because that's not the way the program works. $500 per week, and then the remaining 4 periods after that, or 8 weeks, will be paid at the lower amount of $300. So that's how it's going to work, it sounds like. Now, I wonder how it's going, like it's new applicants will get the $300. So maybe that's if you've never received a benefit before. Okay. I'm just trying to wrap my head around this fully. All right. So it seems like people who are already on the benefit, but have maybe been interspersing it and maybe not taking it every single time and maybe have more to take. Maybe it would, like from the current benefits that are available, perhaps it allows you to continue to get the $500 per week if you didn't receive the $500 per week at the beginning of the program. Like, I wonder if it still will expand out until September. The other is, we're gonna dig into that a little bit more. I'm sure those questions will be answered over time. Again, tomorrow there's going to be more debate about this bill, or this budget, likely. Also here, we see them saying the absolute maximum for the CRB in the Liberals' eyes. So in terms of support for Canadians from this Canada Recovery Benefit, the absolute latest that they're going to be able to extend it to is November 20th. So this would be, I believe, all of October, all of November. This would be 2 extra months of CRB if they do this. They want to seek the legislative authority, so they're going to draft a bill that they have to debate in the House of Commons, and if that gets successfully pushed through, then they would have the power to, if need be, based on numbers and data, they are, I guess, choosing what data to look at, they're going to decide whether or not it's necessary to extend these benefits an additional 2 months, all the way to November, but that would likely be at the $300 rate, $1,200 per month, right? And that's, so that'd be $1,200 per month, but then it would likely also still be remitted tax. So it could be $100 over the course of it, again, is taken. So it would only amount to $1,100 cash in pocket, right? So this is what it's looking like. Interesting stuff here. Interesting stuff. We were waiting to see how they were planning on potentially rolling down these benefits, right? Because the Liberals always have looked kind of lukewarm on the prospects of a UBI. Certainly, they just voted it through in the policy convention. But that's interesting. Okay, so that's where they land on that. Before we move away from the CRB right now, does anyone have any quick questions? I'm going to try to get to as many as I can about the CRB. Of course, we can come back to this later in the stream as well. But we're going to look into a lot more of the details, what supports for seniors are going to look like with students, what jobs they're going to create. This is a big old document. Do you guys see this right here? You see this right here? 375 of 724 pages. It's going to be a long night. Maybe I can get to 30 coffees. What do you guys think? Is that a good idea? Or do you think I'm going to literally punch a hole through my computer based on what I've been knocking over so far? Oh, man. Okay, looking at some questions here. Yeah, they're not helping seniors at all. Yeah, there's like the increase in OAS for people 75 plus, but okay, we've also got, lots of people frustrated about that. $1,200 not enough, need to money. Oh yeah, John. Okay. Yeah, Lucid says these jobs are not going to magically appear even a year from now. CRB will be over and lost. Us will be screwed even harder. Not good enough. Yeah, it's interesting. We're gonna have to see what happens. See what happens here. How do we, TJ Sachs says, how do we calculate the federal portion of the student loan? I think it's going to be different province to province. I know when I went to school, the vast majority of my student loan was through OSAP, the Ontario Students something. I don't know the acronym, but that's where my student loan was from before I had paid that off. So that, and I believe I got like a small I think it was under 10% of a separate loan from the Canadian government through their loan programs. Now you'd have to look into exactly what programs you're enrolled in. Some people may not even have these loans, right? So I can't tell you entirely, unfortunately, exactly what's going to happen there, what that's going to look like for your calculation for that student loan interest pause that was just passed a little while ago. But they're saying they want to pause the federal portion until 2030. So they're saying essentially, hey, we shouldn't be really collecting interest from these students who are trying to get an education, even though it costs them money to get this loan, right? This is what's going on. This is what's going on. All right. Is CRB being extended to September? It sounds like it, yes, but a reduced amount, Susie. All right. Tax brackets, income tax rates, CPP premiums, EI premiums. We're going to have to get into that. I don't think there's going to be any changes to the tax brackets. Kushikated 420. I like the name. Explain the changes for the CRCB. It's different than the CRB. Is it? Canada Recovery Caregiver, additional 4 weeks up to a maximum of 42 weeks. Oh, you're right. So if you've been receiving the CRCB, the caregiver benefit, it looks like up to a maximum of 42 weeks. So how many periods? That's 22 periods max. So it's not the full extension. But I think for a lot of people, it's a little more niche to get into the caregiver program than the CRB. A lot of people have been able to use both interchangeably. Likely if your CRCB ends and you're still eligible for the CRB, it's possible to get that afterwards. So yeah, interesting. Good catch there. Yeah, we're going to talk about as much as we possibly can here. I'm taking a look at chat. No UBI put forward. We're gonna look at EI and see what those changes are. I think that's a good next stop. People are saying no more coffee, Russell. Well, I'm a rebel. Okay, all right. Let's look into this EI. See what's going on here. Okay. EI. Okay. Oh my gosh, EI is gonna be everywhere. Okay, I'm gonna look at employment insurance. Okay. So, oh my gosh, there's 60 references to the full employment insurance. So, maintaining flexible access to employment insurance benefits. Budget 2021 proposes amendments to the Employment Insurance Act to maintain common entrance requirements and to simplify eligibility rules around contentious reasons for separation and the allocation of monies on separation for a period of 1 year from September 2021 to September 2022. Okay, that's not that's not any details on what the changes are going to be. It seems like they're going to just stick with, right now in EI, it's actually a little more flexible. It's allowing more people into the system than the system originally applied for or was intended to be provided for. That didn't make any sense. At the beginning of COVID, or at the beginning of the CRB, I believe this was in October, they broadened the EI so that more people would be eligible. It seems like they're going to keep these broadened rules, but only until September 2022. So an extra year after this. Kushikated, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. That's so nice of you to do. I appreciate that. Again, nobody feel like, I hope, oh my goodness, I can't talk today, guys. Nobody feel like you have to send in a super chat or a sticker like that, but I appreciate it when you do. Thank you so much. I enjoy hanging out here with you guys. This has been a lot of fun. Very interesting. Lots to work through here. It's going to be a long night for sure. All right. So that's EI. Let's see if there's any other things here. Maintaining flexible access to EI. Okay, let's keep going through this and see if we can temporarily waiving the 1 week waiting period for EI claims. Yeah, so this is what was implemented before. There used to be a waiting period for you to get approved. They're going to keep that until 2021. Oh wait, new claim between. Okay, yes, this is what came in with the CRB, I believe. Providing additional weeks of recovery benefits and EI regular benefits. Oh, more details. Government recognized that certain workers who do not qualify needed support. This is talking about why the CERB was created. Yes, we got to this. Providing additional weeks of recovery benefits and EI regular benefits. We heard that. Wait, EI? I'm not seeing in here about additional weeks for EI, apart from the 50 maximum that they updated when they were debating the employment insurance extension probably about a month and a half ago. We covered that on the channel, but it seems like they're going to keep that going forwards. Nate here says, oh, Nate, thank you so much for the super. You've been such a support on this channel. What a guy. Nate's got a great YouTube channel too. So feel free to check that out if you guys haven't already. Nate says, what's going on with CCB for families with young children? They had one help in May of 2020 and that was it. I also feel like I had to send this. Oh, thank you, Nate. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, dude. You're an awesome guy, and thanks for supporting the channel and always commenting. I appreciate you. So CCB, let me give you a quick update on what happened this week. So the Canada Child Benefit, this was something that was in the fall economic update. They tried to increase the Canada Child Benefit up $1,200 from where it was before. $300 every 3 months per child, I believe under 6. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But they passed that through third reading in the House of Commons. So it was being delayed all the way from November 2020. But they actually passed it in third reading. And now as of tomorrow, that's the first possible day that the Canadian Senate can take a look at this bill and decide if they want to write any amendments for it. So that's what's happened here on the when it comes to Canada Child Benefit top-ups, right? We're going to see if there's anything inside this bill here in a moment to see if there's anything new here, but hopefully that answers your question at least a little bit there, Nate. But that's what's been going on for Canada Child Benefit updates. All right, I'll flip back to here. We're just going to get through EI and remind me, Nate, to go back and see if there's any other CCB changes here. All right. Okay, Budget 2021 proposes legislative amendments to provide authority for additional potential extensions of the CRB and its associated suite of sickness and caregiving benefits, as well as regular EI benefits until no later than November 20th, 2021, should they be needed. Okay, so they want to be able to keep this flexible so they can extend when needed. It seems like EI, it doesn't sound like any payments are going to change for EI. Likely you're going to get what you've gotten with it as you've been getting it now until you run out of weeks, depending on how many weeks you have. I'm going to try to answer as many of your questions as I can as we get through this. I just want to see here what's in here. Budget 2021 proposes $3.9 billion over 3 years starting in 2021-2022 for a suite of legislative changes to make EI more accessible and simpler over the coming year. Maintain the Uniform Act. So this is just keeping it the same as it is right now, like having a bump up of your hours, your insurable hours that allows you to apply. Support multiple job holders and those who switch jobs, kind of trying to change it here so that more gig workers can work in through here. Improve their by ensuring that all insurable hours employment count towards a claimant's eligibility as long as the last job separation is found to be valid. Okay. Allow claimants to start receiving them sooner. Extend the temporary enhancements to the work sharing program. Okay, interesting. So a lot of flexibility staying in the EI program here. And thank you, Michelle R. Deschennes. Greetings from Medicine Hat, Alberta. Awesome. $15 minimum wage proposed will make the American news cycle for sure. Oh, it certainly will. It certainly will with all the rampant debate, Michelle, that's been going on in the States about their minimum wage. Again, like we all have to know and keep note of this, that right now, this is the budget. It's all well and good, but nothing is for sure. Right? Like, don't take all of this as fact as this is going to come down the pipeline, because every single one of these things, well, most of them, unless they could be changed via regulation, most of them are going to have to be debated in the House of Commons. You're going to have to get all the other parties on board enough to get the vote through, right? So maybe the Americans, Michelle, won't be reporting on it until it's actually passed through the House of Commons and it becomes law, but we'll have to see. All right. Let's get into a little bit more here. As identified by the International Monetary Fund, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and other experts, pandemic has showed that we need a more effective income support system for the 21st century. Future long-term reform. Okay, so they're passing the buck here when it comes to changing the EI program. We talked about this yesterday in the video, saying, hey, there could be changes to the EI program that could make it look like not a replacement, but like an alternative for what many people were hoping to be a UBI. But it seems like we don't have the details on that EI program yet. They say to support this effort, the government proposes $5 million over 2 years to conduct consultations with stakeholders, and they're going to examine the gaps in the EI system to add more income support for self-employed and gig workers, how to best support Canadians through different life events. Okay, so they're trying to broaden the EI program. Any permanent changes to further improve access to EI will be made following these consultations and once the recovery is fully underway. So they're saying, hey, we're not going to see any changes to EI anytime soon, right? They're going. These are the words that they use when they talk about when they're basically saying we're not going to do anything right now. They say we're going to do consultations, we're going to talk to stakeholders, and we'll those are the ones, right? Like that's what they say whenever they're saying, hey, we're not going to do it now, we're going to study it more, right? Okay. I think that you've probably gotten your answer in the chat here, SWP. I believe that it's always going to be the net earnings for 2020, but it's always going to be that 5,000 threshold, but you may be able to use 2019 or 2020 or the current year, just to answer your question. And generally, just as a note, to get questions answered on here, try your best not to spam the chat. Usually that's not going to work for you when it comes to getting questions answered in here. I know everyone's looking for information here, but I can only get to so many people. But I appreciate y'all for being here. Did I just say y'all? I appreciate you all for coming here. Okay, let's flip back to this. So what happens when your weeks of EI are up, Dale? Well, just as before, when EI runs out, if you haven't applied for CRB and you're eligible, you can transition directly from EI to CRB. Now, there might be a little delay because EI system has to say, hey, he's no longer on EI, she's no longer on EI, and now they're eligible for CRB. But there's nothing saying you can't go to CRB if the situation remains and you're eligible for CRB. Okay, so they're saying, hey, no big changes to the EI program. We're going to keep it the way it is as of COVID for an extra year. Okay, employment insurance sickness benefits. Right now it's 15 weeks. They've already said before that they were going to up it to 25 or 26, and that's what they're doing here, upping the sickness benefits to 26. The rest of the House of Commons is saying, hey, we want you to up it to 50 weeks. NDP have said it, Green Party. I don't remember about the Conservatives. I believe the Bloc Québécois are also in support of 50 weeks, but they're saying, hey, we're going to go with our election promise and go to 26 weeks. All right, sickness benefits, yes. Okay, so that's EI covered. We've talked about CRB, we've talked about EI. We're going to get into some more here. And yeah, thank you guys so much for hanging out here. I always like hanging out with you and getting to know you, and I love that you're watching the videos, but I really love that you're tuning into the live stream because this is where I get to recognize some familiar faces. Okay. Yeah, should be at least minimum 500 a week. Sports Entertainment says. Yeah, I mean, people are going to be a little frustrated by that, but again, it's mostly for what wasn't already announced, right? For the extension past the June end for people who've been applying since the beginning. Interesting stuff here. So there's no possibility of a UBI now, Quasimodo says. Well, I mean, like anything not in this budget could come down the pipeline later. Anything that is in this budget could not even happen, right? It still all has to make its way through the House of Commons. There could be an election that just negates all of this, right? So there's certainly more support growing for UBI, though, especially with the vote that the Liberals had on the other weekend. Russell's an American spy. Oh my goodness. April 30th deadline for taxes. Yeah, no announcement of a change for the tax deadline. Let me see. This is the only way I can sort through this document right now. Yeah, no tax deadline changes. Let me see if it says April 30th anywhere. Yeah, so it seems like they're sticking with the same deadline, which is surprising. Most other places have extended the tax deadline. All right, let's see if we can answer any other questions. Housing, Kenny says. Yeah, so for housing, yes, let's see this. So vacant is the key word. let me show you this. This is the only change that they're bringing in for this housing market that's on a tear, right? We can talk about this. Like, if you don't already know, as my full-time job, I'm a realtor in the Greater Toronto area. So this is close to home for me when it comes to real estate. But they say making housing affordable for all Canadians will require significant investments. That is why on January 1st, 2022, our government will introduce Canada's first national tax on vacant property owned by non-residents. Okay. All right. How is that an investment? You're adding a tax, and it's only for owned by non-residents. So people who don't have resident status is going to be taxed. I wonder what this tax is going to look like. Like, is it going to be substantial? And even if this tax is really hardcore, is it really going to solve the problem in the housing market? My best guess is probably not. I think it's largely a function of the interest rates, the incredibly low interest rates that are prevailing in the market right now. People can get a cheaper mortgage. They can afford more home. OFC is proposing that they increase the mortgage stress test, allowing for people to afford less home, potentially lowering demand. But I really don't think that that's going to slow it down very much either. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's see if there's anything else on this. Okay, yeah, okay. Oh yes, here's more on housing. 300 million in funding in 2021, 2022, 23 as well from the Rental Construction Financing Initiative. Conversion of vacant commercial property into housing. Not a bad idea. Like, we have all this narrative about, oh, people are never going to go back to their offices. Nobody's going to go back to working anywhere from home, but from home again, right? Because so many people now recognize, hey, here are the benefits of working from home. Companies are saving money, not having office spaces. So they're going to invest in converting commercial property into housing. Higher vacancies, opportunity for property owners and communities to explore converting it in excess space into rental housing. Urban communities, funding will explore this. Conversion of excess commercial property space into 800 units of market-based rental housing. Okay, so maybe that's more like government-owned housing. 800 is really not going to move the needle much, though. Like, that's not the huge amount of supply you'd need to lower home prices or lower rent prices. I don't think so, at least. We'll have to wait and see, though. These are just my hot takes as we're going through this. I'm sure I'll make videos going forward in the future, going over some of these more niche down things to try to get a better understanding on what's really going on here. Okay. Intention to implement a national annual 1% tax on the value. Wow. I'm Owen Wilson. Wow. Now, Canadian-owned real estate that is considered to be vacant or underused. The tax will require all owners other than Canadian citizens or permanent residents to file a declaration as to current use, with significant penalties for failure to file. 1%, that's okay. 1% on $100,000 is $1,000, right? So 1% on $1 million is what? It's $10,000. So $10,000 a year tax on $1 million home. Is that right? Is my math right, guys? Am I totally backwards on this? I don't know if it'll really make any difference, right? Okay, let's keep going through here. There's just so much in here. We can't go too deep on anything because we want to get to as much as we possibly can. Yeah, James, it seems like this is going to be lowered in July, the CRB. So that's interesting. We're gonna get in more detail on that in future videos. Yeah, so Sanjay, I don't think there's no plans for a universal basic income in this budget. That's just how it's gone here, even though they were voting in support of it at the policy convention. All right, so I'm looking to the chat right now. We've gone over the highlights of this budget. What do you feel like we need more details on right now of the things that we've talked about? What haven't I covered in more depth? DM9542, does today's budget cancel out the Liberal caucus vote from weeks ago? So that was the policy convention from last week, I think you're talking about. It doesn't cancel it out, right? This is still stuff that they want, that the Liberal Party and all of its supporters want the Liberal government to take a closer look at. But this is just the immediate plan, the budget, right? Now, if there's an election in the future, maybe some other additions to their policy could be included in that election, like a UBI, like this Green New Deal that they're looking for, even though that's kind of already in this budget. Okay. Anything on childcare? Yeah, good point. Let's dive into that childcare plan. SWP says, sorry for the spam, didn't understand, not clear. If the 2019 $5,000 will be enough, or do I have to make $5,000 in 2020 to continue? I need to look into that more, SWP. I think that would likely be on the CRA's website as of right now for the CRB. So I'm not going to go to that right now, but you can check the CRB website, and I believe it's in the section about who can qualify, and it'll tell you which years of income you need to check out. If anyone in the chat can direct them to SWP to that link where they have all that CRB information. I need to double check that. I would have known in the past when I was talking about CRB far more, but yeah. All right, Kushikated 420 says federal minimum wage. Okay, yeah, we'll get into that too. Thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate you. Always appreciate it. Thanks so much for that. You guys are the best people to hang out with here on a Monday afternoon. Is it night? What time is it? 5:40. Okay. Losing sense of time, everyone. Losing sense of time. Okay, but we said we were going to get into the childcare. Yes, childcare. Just there's so much in this budget that it's hard to keep track of. All right. National Child Care. Okay, they don't call it national. They just call it child care. A Canada-wide early learning child care plan. So they're saying 50 years ago is when they wanted to start implementing this. They've been trying to do it for a long time. It's an economic issue as much as it is a social issue. It's going to make more money for Canada. Okay, they're just giving stats here, trying to convince us that it's a good idea. All right, awesome. All these benefits of doing this. So they're just trying to convince us it's a good idea. Let's see what the program actually looks like. That's what okay. How much does it cost to have a kid? It looks like. I want to get into the meat, the good stuff. So they're just trying to explain to you why it's a good idea. So far, we can get into these numbers in the future, but I want to find out what this looks like. The goal is to bring fees for regulated childcare down to $10 per day on average within the next 5 years. And by the end of 2022, they want a 50% reduction in average fees for regulated early learning and childcare to make it more affordable for families. These targets would apply everywhere outside of Quebec. Quebec already has a great system for childcare right now, so they're saying, hey, we're not going to mess with you too hard on this one. Secured gains for generations to come. Okay, so they want $10 childcare per day, per child, $200 a month to have your kid in childcare. As for what that looks like, we need to look at more details. So 50% reduction, average $10 a day, ongoing annual growth in quality. I wonder what metrics they're going to use to monitor that growth in quality, right? That's something we need to think about. Improving and expanding before and after school care in order to provide more flexibility for working parents. I mean, the premise behind the idea is a good one. I mean, if we can get more people working in an economy, of course, it's going to cause more growth. More people can open up businesses. Lots of good stuff there. All right. Building the right foundations, working with provinces so they're going to give funding for not-for-profit sector childcare providers. They want to grow a qualified workforce with a medium wage of $9.20 per hour for childcare workers. Okay, so that could be cause for some of the increase in quality, right? If they increase the average wage, then you may have more applicants for positions, better people in those jobs. Government will work with provincial and territorial baseline. Okay, so that's how they're going to handle quality. All right. So I think the meat and potatoes of it is their goal is over the next 5 years to bring it down to $10 per day per child, which is so cheap, so cheap when it comes to childcare right now. Anyone who has a kid who's watching right now knows. Oh my goodness. Okay, so Kushikated 420, we're going to get to your request from that super chat. Let's get to the federal minimum wage and see what that's going to look like when. Establishing a $15 minimum wage. Can its prosperity and stability depend on every Canadian having a fair chance to join the middle class? Yet some Canadians struggle to do so while supporting families in part-time, temporary, and low-wage jobs. Government of Canada is announcing its intention to introduce legislation that will establish a federal minimum wage of $15 per hour. rising with inflation. So that's 2% a year is what the Bank of Canada's target rate is for inflation. So you could see that raised by 2% each year in the legislation. That's interesting. They're not going to have to go through this again to keep on increasing it over time. I wonder if that's going to be yearly or when they're going to calculate that. And it's going to directly benefit 26,000 workers who currently make less than $15 per hour in the federally regulated private sector. A federal... So are they only referring to like government jobs? Is that what they're talking about here? Okay, so that's all the information for it. Because they only mentioned 26,000 workers who currently make it less in the federally regulated private sector. So I wonder if there's a private sector... Like I don't know everything when it comes to this stuff, so I don't know if it's who's going to be applied to, or if that means it's just federal. Looking at chat here, see if anyone knows here what's going on. Yeah, Max says, why are we paying taxes if they can print as much as they want? Well, I mean, yeah, that's a question. The monetary policy going forward is going to be very interesting. And hey, if you're here still, and I love that you are, 900 of you, this is awesome. On Wednesday, we're going to be having another live stream, I believe around 10 or 11 a.m. But on that live stream, the Bank of Canada is going to come out and say, hey, here's what we're doing with interest rates going forward. Big implications for the housing market, big implications for whether or not the government of Canada is going to be able to provide programs, because if interest rates go up substantially, they have more expensive debt, they have to spend more. So we're going to be live streaming that announcement from the Bank of Canada as well. Yeah, JJ, I'm going to try to do a summary video after this as well, so we can get into all of the main points here of what was inside of this. All right. I'm taking a look at a chat here. Let's find out, is there anything else that we haven't, pressing things that we haven't covered in this live stream about what's inside this budget? Does anyone have any other questions? I'm going to take a look at chat here. Questions about what's going on here. Federally regulated jobs, radio, airlines, banks. Okay, got you. So only the ones that are under regulations from the federal government. Okay, which is most, like many industries. They said they were hanging Canadians back as long as COVID-19 around. Looks like another lie. I mean, yeah, interesting. Did I go over student loans? So the student loans, they want to waive the interest on student loans until March 2023. Did they not say 2030 in the live stream? More than 550,000 low-income student borrowers will also have access to more generous. I thought I heard up until 2030, but maybe she just misspoke and said 2023. So they're only waiving it for another year. The federal portion of student loans. Repayment system for people making $40,000 for borrowers living alone, so that nobody earning $40,000 per year or less will need to make any payments on their student loans. Okay, so more of a pause on payments on student loans at low income levels. Oh, I'm looking at this. I need to switch over so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Man, 2030 to start paying it back. Yeah, I'm not seeing the 2030 number here they were talking about. Doubling the student grants for 2 additional years. Okay. Additional $2,600 for, I believe, low income. Pandemic caused others repayment aid to students in need. This effectively covered 90% of the average. Okay, so they're going to double the maximum student grant amount. So it used to be $3,000 for full-time students. Now it's going to go up to $6,000. This is a grant, non-repayable, right? It's not a loan. It's a grant. Helps you pay for tuition. Interesting. The other more left-leaning parties have been calling for debt to be eliminated, or at least forgiven a portion of it, lower, even more subsidies. I think that's what the Green Party is going to be frustrated with in hearing this. Yeah, I think she misspoke, or maybe I misheard about the 2030 thing. Maybe, I guess this is just for one year. All right. When does OAS increase to $100? Yeah, let's take a look at that. So this is for seniors 75 plus, old age security. Lots of people frustrated that it wasn't changed to a lower age, right? The government's proposing to increase old age security beginning in 2022. So this would be January 2022. Chapter 7 is where it's outlined. And here we are, Chapter 7. Immediate needs of this group, providing a one-time payment of $500 in August 2021. So this August, OAS pensioners, if this passes, could get a one-time payment of $500 over 75 as of June 2022. So people who are 74, people who are 74 in this year would also get it because of that. Proposal to introduce legislation to increase regular OAS payments by 10%, $766 over the first year. So this would be 2022. That seems like the change that they're proposing. The Bloc Québécois have been really heavily pushing for a larger increase and for more people to be included in that. Interesting stuff. Yeah, and it'll be taxable, Shelley. I'm seeing you there say that. Of course, it's all going to be, taxable. AI genomics details. Yeah, I'm actually interested in that as well. Artificial intelligence strategy. What are they going to do? So we propose to invest the next phase of the artificial intelligence strategy in genomics as well. That's interesting. I've been following CRISPR and companies like this. That's a very interesting space. So they want to provide almost $500 million over 10 years. That's rather small compared to the spending in some other spaces for AI development and research in Canada. But I mean, it's the way the world's going, so I can see why you want to put more funding into this. People are frustrated that AI is taking your jobs, but I mean, like it's going to happen. AI is just getting so good with machine learning. It's so interesting how it works, and it's not necessarily a bad thing in all cases, right? Because if we can get artificial intelligence to do more jobs of Canadians, if we can restructure the way that that dollars are distributed to people, maybe we can end up doing less work because there's artificial intelligence doing it, and be able to live the similar quality of life. These are the ideas, and it comes down to the details, right, with any of this. Yeah, Skynet's coming. Yeah, we're going to be in the Terminator pretty soon. 40 million over 5 years, 80.6. So lots of money for AI. Broad strokes here. National quantum strategy, like with quantum computing, which we far more advanced computing because of the like typically computers are like on off binary, right? Quantum states allows for multiple different states in a computer chip, so you can do way more computing on a smaller chip, and this could do a lot for tech going forward. They want more research in that, is what they're saying. $360 million over 7 years. And photonics, okay, dealing with light particles, I guess. Is that what photonics is? Like photon is a light particle. Particles are moving waves and as part of quantum computing as well. All right. Launching a pre-Canadian genomics strategy, a pan-Canadian. $400 million over 6 years. So more money for genome research, right? Lots of developments made here when it comes to genomics, right? Like studying the human genome. CRISPR is one way that we can do gene sequencing. Some people say that this is going to be a huge way that they work on medicine in the future. Some concerns moving forward, because this is the whole idea of designer babies in the future, because you can use technologies like CRISPR and other genomic strategies to alter what a human is, and there's huge ethical concerns there. If anyone's interested in that, read Noah Yuval Harari's book 21 Questions for the 21st Century. Oh, what a killer book. One of my favorite reads in the past 5 years. Conducting clinical trials. Okay, so lots of new money for tech and science in Canada. Interesting stuff. What happened to UBI? I mean, yeah, not much in terms of UBI here. Definitely not even much in EI, right? We saw Carla Qualtrough yesterday say, hey, we're going to reform UI, but that's not going to happen until years from now, it sounds like, because they use those words, consult and talk to stakeholders and do studies, right? Well, disability programs be increased. I believe disability on a lot of fronts is a provincial jurisdiction, so you'd have to look to the provincial budgets to see if there's any increases there. Like, let me see if there's any disability towards a new... Okay, maybe I'm wrong. The government has taken steps towards building an inclusive, resilient economy that supports people with disabilities, in addition to enacting groundbreaking legislation. Bear you free. All right. Let's see, what are you actually doing? 11.9 million over 3 years starting 22 to undertake consultations, more consultations to reform the eligibility process for federal disability programs and benefits. This will help maximize the reach of these programs. The reach. Okay, so saying that the disability could reach more people could be eligible based on those consultations. Yeah, so when they say in preparation for this legislation, they're going to do extensive consultation. This means not soon. This is short form for not soon. This means we're going to talk to a bunch of people to figure out what we want to do. We don't know yet. That's what they're saying here. More access to the disability tax credit. Update the list of mental functions. Okay, so more people are going to be eligible. More activities in determining time spent on life-sustaining therapy. Okay. So it seems like they're going to make more people eligible for it, but I don't see anything here about an increase in the amount of it for many people on disability. But again, like for Ontario, ODSP, I believe, is the Ontario disability payment that people can get. That would be on Ontario, not on the federal government to manage. Yeah, I will provide that's a good idea. For anyone who wants to take a closer look at this, I'm throwing this in the chat right now. Oh no, that's not, this is the link. So if you guys want to take a look at this yourself, here's the link. I just threw it in chat. It could be like you could probably get the information there in chat from mine. If there's anything I'm not touching on that you want me to touch on. Yeah, Death Penguin, all of Harari's books are amazing. 21 Questions for the 21st Century, Homo Deus, as well as, what's the other one? The first one that he wrote. But they're all good. There's 3 books, and I actually base a lot of my investing on what is done, what is talked about in Harari's books, because I believe really that's the way the world is going in a lot of cases. It's a real solid predictions on what could be moving forward in terms of tech, humanity in general. I'm so interested in the investing thing. And I don't know if I've mentioned it on this live stream, but as of today, I've just launched a course on Canadian money mastery, personal finance. If you've been watching the stream for a while, you already know that I'm pretty frustrated with the Canadian government and how little financial education there is out there. So I figured, hey, I'm going to try to create a course that should have been the high school course that everyone was taught in high school. So there's a link in the description. Let me know what you think of it. I'm constantly growing the course, but I figured I'd mention that there because over the past 2 hours, I haven't mentioned that I've finally got that up and rolling. All right. How are they going to help small new business owners? We're going to have to look. Yes, Sapiens. Sapiens, Harshal. Thank you. All right. Yeah, small businesses. Let's take a look here. Obviously, they're going to extend all of the previous supports. Let's see if we can get into... It's almost an ASMR channel there for a second. I'm looking for some data, some hard facts on the things they're going to do for small businesses. They said that they want to get... Computer Futures Network of Canada... So what they said in the budget, from what I remember, is that they want more. They're going to train young people to go out to small businesses to help them get tech rolling. As well as it seems like they want to make it easier for businesses to write off as a tax write-off more tech for their business that's green, as well as pushing forward tech in general for the businesses. That's what I remember from the summaries that I've done. Okay, yeah, Digital Main Street. Yeah, this is the e-commerce tool. They want to train people for the Digital Service Squad, go help small businesses grow their tech. Interesting stuff. Enhancing Canada's small business financing, more access to credit, more borrowing, more people allowed to borrow from this program, it seems like. Again, I can only go service level here because there's just so much in this budget. Yeah, we do need more jobs. I'm really hoping that some of this work on jobs here has really, really helped You know, like, I hope that there's more jobs created, because I think that, like, that's what everyone wants, right? Like, people talk about a universal basic income, and it sounds like it certainly could be a positive, but I think that a lot of people, if they had a job that they felt comfortable at, that they could make a livable wage, and feel fulfilled in it, then, you know, like, it's not as pressing a need, right? But it's a matter of, can our country really transition us into a space where everyone has one of those? Do you know what I mean? Those jobs are few and far between right now. That's for sure. Do I think the federal government will collaborate with provincial governments to beef up social assistance program? That's from TBC TV. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's nothing in the budget really that's like that right now. It could be part of the EI program, like with social assistance, that update. Interesting stuff. And even with anything that's inside of this budget, it's not for sure going to happen 100%, right? Because it needs to all go through the House of Commons. I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions from the Conservative government about how this spending is going to work. There's no fiscal anchor here. We're just talking debt to GDP. So whether or not parties will actually support any of these measures going through, that's a whole other thing. Remember, the fall economic update was put forward on November 30th, and the bill that was implementing the things that were inside of that, well, it just passed like on Thursday, like last Thursday. So like 4 or 5 months through that time to get that passed. So, and that's just a mini budget, right? Now this is the real deal. It could take even longer, or there could be an election, like Annamie Paul thinks, if you're here from the beginning. I'm interested. How many people are still here on the stream that were here at the very beginning when we were watching those things before the budget even started? Let me know. You guys are the OGs. The OGs here all the way from the beginning. Okay. Yeah, I put the budget document in the chat before. I'm going to do it again here 3 times. Anyone who wants the budget, it's right there. You can take a look at it yourself. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in, everyone who's been here the whole time. That's so cool. So cool. That's amazing. All right. So I'm going to take a second here. Any other last minute updates here that people want me to go over that were inside of the budget? I'm planning on finishing this up, maybe making myself a little dinner, and then making another video that's going to summarize the base points of what was in here. None of the fine details yet, because we're still very service level on this stuff. But Camilo, I don't see nothing new on interest rates, but tune in on Wednesday. We're going to live stream on the channel here the Bank of Canada's announcement on their future policy for interest rates. That's where that's going to change. Going to change things for mortgages if they choose to change anything, right? They still can't. But that's where you're going to look for interest rates on Wednesday. Stay tuned for the channel for that. Yeah, Candace says have a steak. Maybe I'll order something in. Usually I'll just have like pasta or something cheap. I love living my life as cheaply as possible so I can invest as much money as possible, so I can try to get to a place where I'm financially stable for the rest of my life. That's the goal. And that's why I think people need to keep on learning about the financial topics, personal finance here in Canada, because the Canadian government doesn't teach it to us. So that's what I focus in optimizing my life for that. I talk about it a lot more in the course that I just made too. But yeah, good point, Candace. Maybe I'll splurge and I'll buy myself some Taco Bell. I love Taco Bell, man. The worst thing ever for you. I'm going to be 800 pounds, but. Yeah, Michael says, check your focus rate and Windows sample rates match while eating. Enjoy. Yeah, I think I'll do that too. I haven't had problems with this clipping before in the audio, but Paul, my regular job, I'm a realtor in the Greater Toronto area, so I work in the real estate industry. Been doing that for a while now, and I've loved it. Helped families buy places, both investment properties and their first primary residence, and help people get into house hacks. Now, this is one of the things that I think is most important for Canadians to know about personal finance. Personal finance experts and people who talk about making a budget, I think they largely got the whole thing wrong, right? People say, cut down on your Starbucks. Well, that's great to do. Okay. Cut down on your discretionary spending, going to restaurants. Great to do. But we need to focus as Canadians on the larger expenses to get our spending down so we can invest more, get ourselves set up for the future. That's what house hacking does. It lowers your housing payments through creative methods of renting out portions of your house. in order to pay for the entirety of your mortgage or the entirety of your rent, so that you can save more, invest more. That's where you can make an impact on your finances. That's what I'm doing right now. I run and operate an Airbnb also in my basement. And that covers, when it's fully booked, it covers my entire mortgage, which allows me to essentially live for free because of implementing these house hacking strategies, and invest all of that extra money from my income of my normal job to get myself closer to my financial goals. I talk about that all in the course in the link in the description, which is just launched today. You can get 50% off with the coupon code launch. If you're interested in, take a look at it. The program's constantly growing. It's a new thing that I'm really proud of. I've been working on for a while, but if that's at all interesting to you, make sure you can check it out there and get half off, because just launched today. So that's some of the stuff we talk about, among other things. All right. Yeah. Tax brackets are still the same, Camillo. The government better tread lightly, or they're going to see a revolt. Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's been so tricky, and there's such a broadening of the wealth gap, and it's largely, there's so much asset inflation. People who have invested in stocks and real estate and assets, right? They've done well throughout the pandemic. Like, I'm super lucky to have bought my house when I did, and to have been investing in stocks and been working on this stuff for a while, because with such low interest rates, people can take money out and invest more of it at super low costs. And there's so much more money in the system from the money printing. $4 billion a week from the Bank of Canada is being added to the system every single week. So people with assets have done well, and people who haven't been investing, haven't been doing these things, haven't been doing well. And this is largely due to these interest rates, right? The Bank of Canada's quantitative easing program stretches the wealth gap. We need some sort of political solution to all of this. But I myself, going forwards here, am trying to play the game by the rules as they currently are right now, and trying to invest as much as I possibly can. We might see inflation here in the future. Your savings could go down in value. So I've been really focusing on investing as much as I can, trying to build my wealth that way, because we really can't depend on the government when it comes to these things to bring in these benefits. That's why that's the whole reason I made that course down there. Did the CCTB go up? I'm not sure what you mean, but none of the benefits went up. Taxes, so the new taxes, there's a luxury tax on some larger luxury goods, like luxury cars, luxury boats, over $100,000 over $250,000 respectively. Also private planes. Also, I don't think they're going to get much tax revenue from that over in the long term, right? But that's the tax they want to do. Also, new taxes for corporations that are owned and operated outside of Canada and make money off Canadians. They want to be able to make more money on that. We might go into more detail on that in a future video. Yeah, Minnie, the minimum wage is going up to $15 as of this budget. But again, like I said here, take everything with a grain of salt, because everything inside of this budget isn't official yet. They need to pass it through the House of Commons, right? They need to legislate it. They need to write the bills, get the Conservatives on board, get the NDP on board, even for this $15 minimum wage increase, right? So, like, this is what they're announcing. This is what their plan is. But whether or not they are able to execute is what we're going to be watching and covering here on the channel over the next coming months, years, right? So you're going to want to stay tuned for all of that stuff. Elder 60 plus need more support. 75 plus, holy, that's old. Just to have to survive to 75 to survive. But yeah, I mean, like, people are saying, like, why are we creating different classes of seniors? $60 or 60 plus, 65 plus, 70, 75 plus. Why are they all in different brackets? Should we not, like, expand that a little bit? But the Liberals say, hey, we're sticking to our plan of increasing OAS for 70 plus or 75 plus. Oh, is my course link not working? Let me check that link, because yeah, someone's saying here that it's not working. You can take a look at it if you're interested in it. When I checked the link, someone said that earlier that it wasn't working, the course link, but when I put it into my browser, it does work. You should come up and see a page that looks like this. Yeah, this is what I launched. It has a whole, like, this is the curriculum that I've been working on. Literally all of these courses: getting your mind right, the levers for financial success, getting out of debt, house hacking ladder, lever 2 deep dive, all of these different ideas, stock market investing, Canadian accounts, and it's going to be added more over time. But this link should work. Let me send you the actual link here if anyone's interested in taking a look at it. Oh, that's odd that the antivirus closed it. Let me put it in. Let me put the proper link in the description. Well, I'll just change it afterwards. You guys have the link there in the chat. If you guys are interested in it, take a look and let me know what you think I should add to it. Like, what do people want to know when it comes to Canadian personal finance? Because I love talking about that stuff, but it doesn't really do as well on YouTube all the time. That's why I've kind of tried to make a secondary place where I can work on bringing all of that additional content. I think there's already 2 hours worth of videos on there that I've made before launching it, but hopefully that link will work in an incognito video. Oh, okay. I'm glad it works for you there, Ruth and family. Yeah, thanks for checking that out. Yeah, let me know what you think of it. I want to keep growing that over time because I think that it's something. It's definitely a space that is undereducated in the education system. All right. Okay. Okay, good. Oh, I'm glad it works. Okay, so maybe I'm worried about nothing. Okay. So, before we end the stream here, let's take another like 15 minutes or so here and do a little bit more question and answer. If you guys have any questions about anything, you know my specialty is in, well, like all these policies and stuff I've been covering for the past while, but also real estate. I'm a full-time realtor as well, on top of having the YouTube channel and running the Airbnb. But somehow I still am able to play some video games now and then with some friends. I love Valorant. Anyone here play Valorant? Man, I love that game. Kind of like CSGO, but with abilities. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, Q&A. We can cover real estate topics, investing, personal finance, what was in the budget here, anything like this, macroeconomics I'm interested in talking about too. Owing taxes on CERB. Yeah, Tammy, we're going to continue to owe taxes on CERB. That's seen as income. You're going to be taxed at your marginal tax rate. Depending on how much income you make, you get charged a different amount of tax. Yeah, Mark, I think that's going to be the largest indicator of the housing market, right? Like the interest rates changing. And that's why we're streaming on Wednesday too, to watch what their decision is on interest rates, the Bank of Canada, because they're the ones who control the interest rates through their market manipulating quantitative easing program. Submarine says, what would you consider to be a major change out of this budget, assuming it gets passed? Well, the thing that they're most excited, the Liberals are most excited about, is that national childcare. Like, the devil's always in the details. I'm never going to say something's good or something's bad, right? Because you just don't know, right? You just don't know until you see it in action. But I think that could be huge. Like childcare is so expensive, and I think it's awful that women who want to be focusing on their careers, like men too, because men are caregivers as well, but women, based on the data, are typically the ones caring for children more often. I think that anyone who wants to be able to contribute to the economy and create their own career, build up their own business, like I don't think it should be prohibitively expensive for them to do so based on childcare costs, right? So I think that that's something that could be a potential positive. Now, you're going to hear a lot of complaints about the amount of spending going into it. That's another issue. Whether or not they're doing it in the right way, we don't know. I don't know if I fully support the way that they're doing it, right? This is the devil that is inside of those details hiding in there. Oh, Anthony, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate you. That's so nice of you for the $5. Give love to Anthony in the chat, you guys. Thank you for that. That's so nice of you to send in. I appreciate it. Okay, Christopher says, what's the best and quickest way to improve my credit score? This is all going to be inside of the course too in more detail, but there are 5 things that go into your credit score. Credit history, how long you've had credit. You want to get a credit card as early as you can and have a longer credit history for them to look at. You want to keep your utilization rate under 30%. So if you have a credit limit of $1,000, don't let your credit that you're leaving on there as a balance get over $300. They'll look on that negatively. You want to have different types of credit. A credit card is different from a student loan, is different from a mortgage, is different from a car loan. If you have more types of credit, they'll say, hey, this person knows how to manage their money in all these different ways, then you should be good. There are some other ones in there as well. Also, you can get dings on your credit score for opening up new lines of credit, new credit cards. That can affect your score. I think I'm probably missing one, but again, that's all going to be in the course in the future. I might have a video on the channel too. If you look up Russell Matthews credit score, credit hacks or something, you might get a little bit more information there on one of the videos there too. Yeah, Jennifer says, how do you save when you only earn $1,200 a month? Yeah, this is the thing, right? There are 3 levers And again, you guys are asking me questions that are all stuff I talk about heavily in the course. But these are three levers you can pull when it comes to personal finance: your spending, your earning, and your investing, right? And by manipulating those, you can do multiple different things with your finances and get yourself out of any sticky situation. Well, earning $1,200 a month, you do need to focus on trying your best to increase your income at the same time as lowering down your spending. Well, the biggest thing you can do to lower your spending is through house hacking, reducing your housing payments, whether it be rent or your mortgage, by renting out portions of it in different creative ways. That's what I do. That's how I'm able to save as much as I am right now. But yeah, with $1,200, you're going to want to focus on some of the ways to increase your income. You can have more scalability in your job, to try to transition into a job that can they pay you based on the value you provide rather than the time that your butt is in the chair, right? These are different things. Again, way more detail in the future that I can go into as I make more content as well. What about the 2 small business grants on Ontario? Yeah, the second small business grant. Yeah, I don't know when that's going to be implemented, Top Boy. I don't know. But again, I try not to spam the chat. I'm going to just put you in a quick timeout there in the chat so we can't see that as much. All right. What's your opinion on developing a worker co-op sector to compare with the corporate sector like the UK Labour Party has proposed in the past? Oh, Death Penguin, that's interesting. I don't know too much about that. A worker co-op sector to compete with the corporate sector. I mean, is that like a government-owned sector that competes with the corporate sector? I really don't have enough information. I don't know enough about it to give you an informed opinion on that, Death Penguin, but I'll have to look into that. Thank you for bringing it up. 15 weeks ending March and no income until now. That's tricky. Any student loan good news? They're looking to pause interest payments on student loans for an additional year. I believe they mentioned 2030 until the end of 2030 somewhere, but I may not have misheard that because I can't find that in the budget here on my computer. Yeah. What's the 12? Yeah. So Kim, what's the $1,200 about? $1,200 could be the CRB change as of July for people who are exhausting the amount of periods they have to apply. It's going to go down to $300 per week instead of $500, and then likely that $1,200 is going to be taxed. So it seems like CRB on average, when you get it for the month in July, August, they could potentially extend the CRB past September into November. Well, it could go down to $1,100 a month essentially, right, after tax. So interesting takes here. Yeah, hopefully that helps answer your question, Ghislaine. Sorry for mispronouncing your name. Yeah, they didn't say anything about UBI. Employment insurance changes. Yeah, interesting stuff. CRCB as well then. Yeah, CRCB, that was extended, but not as much, but it wasn't going to be lowered down as well. Oh, Anthony, yes, I saw your super chat. Thank you. Anthony says, sent you a super chat earlier. You do an amazing job. Do you foresee the real estate market cooling down anytime soon? I'll be selling in 2 months. Good question, Anthony. And again, you're going to ask 10 different people about this, and they're going to give you 10 different answers because nobody knows long-term where things are going to go. All we can do is look at the data and what it's telling us. If there are no major changes with what's going on right now, we're going to find out on Wednesday about interest rate changes. But if there's no major change to what's going on, interest rates stay low, maybe OFC doesn't change those regulations they were talking about changing, immigration targets are hit, I don't see it slowing down right now. People always say, whenever I say I think real estate's going to keep going up for the next while, they say, Russell, you're a realtor, you're a shill, you're just trying to pump real estate, get people to buy real estate with you. And I'll be the first one to tell you when I'm not confident in the real estate market. But right now, like, again, they could come out with a government change in the future. Something major black swan event could happen, changes real estate prices, Anthony. But as of right now, I see it kind of continuing. You know, I see it continuing for the next while. Low supply still, right? Low supply, not as enough people selling to meet the buyer demand. With these low interest rates, buyers can afford more home for less money on their monthly payment. So this allows way more borrowing power, way more purchasing power. And I think that's one of the largest drivers of the real estate market right now. But tune in Wednesday if you want to know what's happening with interest rates, because I think that's going to be the largest determiner, Anthony. Good question. Yeah, Paul says must be fun selling right now. Have a place and find a new place to buy. Yeah, many people aren't selling because even if they sold, they couldn't upgrade, right? Because those prices are going crazy too. Only downsizers are really able to get out of this market scot-free. Yeah, Paul remembers 5%, 7.5%, 10% mortgage rate. Cheap money right now. You can get a mortgage for 2%, 2.2, easy. It's so cheap. It's like, if you have access to credit at that rate, 2.2%, take it, man. Like, you're going, like, at least that's my view on things. That's a low interest rate. And to own real estate at 2.2%, like potentially putting down 5%, right? You can put down 5% on like a $500,000 property and have control over a $500,000 asset, only paying 2.2% interest on that. That's kind of nuts, kind of huge for wealth building. This is some of the stuff I talk about in the course down below about house hacking and how you can get into that and really build your wealth with that. But especially at these low rates, it's absolutely nuts. Now, I'm not saying rates should stay low, but you play the game by the rules that are laid out for you, right? I'm the messenger. Don't shoot me for telling you that it's okay to buy real estate right now. Because with rates like these, you can see why people do. Yeah, so interesting. 2.5 billion for affordable housing could go to fly all the Chinese back to China. That's an interesting take, Parker. The 2.5 billion for affordable housing, that's interesting. Are they going to be successful here? Convert more office space into condos? Is that going to help in these cities that are like Vancouver and Toronto and other markets that are really booming right now? It's wild. Yeah, Minnie, they're going to lower the CRB only post-July for people who have exhausted all their benefits. Well, I'm going to make a video in the future getting down into the nitty gritty of what exactly is going on here when it comes to that. So, yeah, we changed from 20 years to 17 years for 40 more, but okay. So a lower amortization rate, Paul, or a lower amortization. Yeah, you'd rather have a good job than UBI. I think everyone, like, nobody wants, like, I mean, there are arguments to have this even if people have good jobs and also have UBI, but if there's a way to provide jobs, high quality people are happy in, can make good money and own a home, do these things that many people are, the goals of them, of Canadians, be able to provide for their family, well then, like, I don't think there's as much demand for something like a UBI, but that's simply not the way the world is right now. And with these interest rates and with all of the constant changes and in the world, it just seems like the wealth gap is growing and more and more and more. And like I keep on saying, like, I feel bad for saying it, but I think that wealth gap's going to continue. There's going to be more and more of a divide between the haves and the have-nots in the world, not just in Canada. And while that's an awful thing and that's a sad thing, and I hope that there's things that come in to help people out. It's my goal, like, as a person, as I think it should be yours too, to not be a martyr for the cause of closing the wealth gap, but trying to do all the things you possibly can to get closer to the wealth and stable side as you can, right? Like, everyone wants everyone to be equal in Canada, but it's like, we don't know that that's a sure thing. So I think everyone here should be thinking about trying to do the things, the investing and the saving and taking care of your personal finances to try to get on the side that's a little bit more stable, right? I mean, I feel guilty saying it. Do you know what I mean? But you've got to look out for yourself when it comes to this. You can't count on the government to bring in these things for you. That's why it's so important to learn about these personal finance things that they don't teach you in school. I hate it. Oh man. Yeah, UBI, Mike, isn't becoming a thing as of this budget. Anything in this budget necessarily isn't going to get pushed through. Has to go through the House of Commons, but nothing directly for UBI in this budget. What do I do full time? Yeah, I'm a real estate agent, realtor in the Greater Toronto area. I mostly work in the Durham region where I live, a little bit east of Toronto, like 30 minutes east of Toronto, but I do work in Toronto as well. Brian says, Russell, do you work alone? Have you ever entertained the idea of apprenticing some people to work for you and build yourself a business? It depends on what business you're talking about there, Brian. I've certainly thought about getting some virtual assistants for the real estate side of things to handle some of the more administrative work. Haven't done that yet. Right now, I'm in a point in my life where I'm young. I'm single. I don't have a wife to spend time with as much. I don't have kids that I need to be thinking about. So right now I can just pour all my time into working, building the YouTube channel, building my real estate business. So I haven't really hired out things because right now I have an abundance of time, especially with all these lockdowns in Ontario, right? You've got time to do your own work. But yeah, that's a good question. Something I need to think about in the future. Tom O says, let's fund for a basic income. Thank you for the super chat, Tom O. Yeah, that $2 will go towards a basic income. Not exactly. I think that $2, Tom, will go towards buying me a one Timmy's run. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out here. See you later, Shelly. Thanks for tuning in. What do I think about crypto? Crypto, I'm very interested in. Right now, I hold about 5% of my net worth in cryptocurrency. I think it's an interesting space. There's risk of regulation in the future. We don't know where it's going to go. There's also a risk of some of these people who lend on crypto and these places that pay higher interest rates, like BlockFi. There's a link in the description for that. You can earn interest. But there are questions and there are risks associated with that when it comes to what happens if there's a run on cryptocurrency. If everyone wants to pull their cryptocurrency out of these platforms like BlockFi or these other places that pay you interest, well, then people are going to realize that it's been lended out multiple times. Is everyone going to be able to get their cryptocurrency back? This is one of the biggest risks I see. But I do hold cryptocurrency. Yeah, I'm very interested in it. I'm thinking about bumping my allocation up to like maybe 5%, 7% of my net worth in it, because I am getting more and more convinced that it could be somewhere to go. But again, this is why I tell you I'm transparent about where I've invested. 5 to 7% of my portfolio, right? I don't recommend necessarily, unless you do the research and you feel confident in it, putting more. Like, you need to determine your allocation based on your own belief of the risks and rewards involved in it, right? I'm never going to tell you put all your money in crypto, because that's a personal decision. Timothy says, Russell, I'm a small business owner in Hamilton, Ontario, and I keep hearing people mention small business grants. What should I be searching for? If you don't already know, check out the Ontario Small Business Support Grant. Now, that is up to $20,000 for Ontario support grants. There's more long-term stuff in this budget, but I want to get you what's available for you right now, Timothy. I appreciate the super chat, by the way. Thanks for tuning in. Everyone here is so awesome and so great to hang out with. But check out the Ontario Small Business Support Grant. There was one round of it that went for up to $20,000 before, and now they're doing another round of that. People can get up to $40,000 for the small business based on different qualifiers. So you'll have to check into that. You can also search on my channel, Ontario Small Business Support Grant, and likely there's a couple of videos when those were announced about more details of it. And hopefully that's helpful for you, Tim. Anything coming for seniors? There's a boost of the OAS, the old age security of seniors over 75. So you can expect to see that. Oh yeah, Renee's saying go get some Taco Bell. Yeah, maybe I should eat soon. What time is it? 6:30. Okay. Jennifer says, where may I find your course? Yeah, so anyone who's tuning in here is interested in the course, I've just launched it. Right now it's in its pre-sale. It's the cheapest it's ever going to be because there's still more that needs to be added to the course over time. But as I add more to the course, the price is going to go up over time. So now's the cheapest it's ever going to be. But you can find a link in the description. I'll also throw it here in the chat if it's something you guys are interested in. Again, no pressure. But sometimes for some of these more personal finance, more niche topics, the more direct advice and things like this, it doesn't perform as well on YouTube. It doesn't make sense for you to make all those videos on YouTube all the time. I like to cover a variety of things, but if you're interested in that personal finance, then you can check that out in that course. Check out the curriculum, see if it's something that's interesting for you and something that might be worth it for you. Half off with coupon code LAUNCH. Yep, first day that it's even available, so you can be one of the first people in it if you're interested in it. I think it's in Canadian dollars, CS Postal. Hey, thanks, Princess Pepper. I appreciate it. Yeah, Taco Bell does suck for some people, but for some reason, oh man, something about it just tickles my taste buds, man. Thank you, though. No need to put in a super chat or anything like that. Anyone, thank you. Frank, thank you so much. You've been a great supporter, commenting on every video. You hit the join button, or a part of supporting the channel that way. Thank you for tuning in here, Frank. You are the man. When is the last check among craft dinner over here? Yeah, the last check. Yeah, the fries supreme are so good. I'm getting distracted by food. This is a clear indicator that I need to end the stream soon, you guys. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so there's going to continue to be CRB for the future. When's CRB ending? They were proposing that they may be able to extend it all the way to November, but at a reduced rate of $300 per week instead of $500 per week as of July of this year. So that's interesting. Okay, yes, I can get addicted to answering all these questions and chatting with you guys, but I should take my own advice, and go get me some dinner. You can expect to hear a lot more from me over the next days with more videos going into more details on this budget. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, I'll say it one more time. There's a course link in the description. I just launched it today. Let me know what you think about it. Feel free to hop in the Discord. Tell me, hey, Russell, you should add this to the course. This would be really valuable. I want to add as much as I possibly can to this thing, but check it out. It's called Canadian Money Mastery. All the things I've learned over the past years and how I'm able to live a more stable life now because of implementing things like house hacking, tricks to spend less and earn more, and then invest that money that you get in the split there from spending less and earning more. That's the whole focus of the course. If you're interested in it, check it out. If you're not interested in it, let me know why you're not and what would be inside of it that would make you interested. I'm going to be adding more and more over the next years to that course to make it as full-fledged as possible. Awesome. And with all of that, thank you guys so much for watching. Here comes the classic video outro. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope this stream has helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you guys next time. Remember, Wednesday, we're doing an interest rate stream. Tune in for that. Lots more news coming at you soon on the channel. All right, I'll see you guys later. Have a great Monday night. I appreciate you all. See you later.